Hello. Hello, hello, hello. If you are hearing this, that means I am live. I have done a lot of work tinkering with my audio to hopefully have significantly better sound quality. Because I went to upload some past streams and I realized they sounded like garbage. I hope this is better. This is as good as I can do with my current mic, which is a Blue Yeti Nano. I would like to do better than this, and if you would like to support me in that, you can donate to me at my website, cheeserightshow.com, so I can afford a better microphone or something, because I've kind of pushed this as far as I can get it. Okay, so over the past couple weeks, there have been a lot of complaints and concerns that Ken Martin, the DNC chair, has not released a full, proper autopsy of 2024. However, as it's come out from other sources, this is kind of because they did a bunch of interviews, and all they really got back were a bunch of messy, disjointed answers. They never really had a clean, clear-cut, useful autopsy document in the first place. There was not like a clear, singular, standout cause. It was a mess. Like, it was just kind of garbage, and that's why it wasn't super duper worth sharing. And it just created more cause for like messy infighting. It wasn't even necessarily accurate or anything like that. So what I have done is pulled together the most useful, most actionable practical information we can have on what went wrong. And then we're going to make a Google Doc pulling together some of the lessons we can actually learn and make our own better, actually coherent, like, autopsy document. Cool? Hi. So, here we go. I have 3 documents. First, what Ken Martin did put out is what he's calling the DNC playbook, and it's a practical guide on like some just general actionable things to rework pipelines and workflows for like people running campaigns, like for organizers on the ground. And it simplifies some stuff and is a little better at understanding new media. It's not much, and it doesn't actually focus on the contents of anything they say or do. And that's what people want, right? People want like change on policy or messaging. It doesn't really cover any of that. It's more so on logistics. It's also 200 pages long. I tried to do some of this like the other week, and we did not make it through, and the recording was bad, so I didn't like use it. So we're gonna go through that again a bit faster, but that might be the last thing we cover. I also have 2 more articles. One from The Bulwark, which is a media company run by a lot of like ex-Republican political operatives who are like never Trumpers, and now they're basically liberals. Like, they just want the Democrats to win, and have a very grounded, like, they're not gonna bullshit you. They're not in like they're also not in like a left-wing like bubble. So they have like a pretty useful perspective from like a more center angle on what they told the DNC autopsy. It's by someone who's like one of the people interviewed for the autopsy team, and then the autopsy never came out. So like we can get that full perspective, which is useful, which is some of the stuff that would be in there. From one person's point of view. And then I also have an article by Z runs campaigns, who runs the Unfuck America tour, and runs National Ground Game, which is replacing Turning Point USA as an on-the-ground power structure nationwide. It's sort of like the anti-Turning Point USA. It's like a mirrored version of that, right? So it's like left-leaning, and pretty successful. Z has a reputation of being like very practical, and kind of scary in a good way. Sort of like a drill sergeant. Like Z has high expectations for doors knocked and stuff like that. Like, get on the ground, like, move it, pick up your feet, let's go. And is laser focused on targeting like young men specifically, like in that college demographic. Excuse me, because those are the people being pulled into a right-wing pipeline. So you can stop that at the source and like redirect the other way and achieve something actually good. So he's like very picky, which I like. As also an analytical, critical person, like, I tend to appreciate. So hopefully this stuff is useful. We're gonna see. So we're gonna start by looking at maybe the Bulwark article, which is, I think, the most detailed view of like someone who was in the Harris campaign, like an inside view of what that was. And each of these will be a separate video, so apologize if at the start of each one I end up like summarizing this top level stuff again. Excuse me. Browser. This is an article from the Bulwark. Let me hit record. How did Democrats mess up in 2024? What lessons can we learn from that, and what can we do better? This is an article from the Bulwark, a media company of a lot of never Trumper ex-Republican political operatives who now want Democrats to win. So they have a grounded, typically center view, looking at the left and wanting to support the left. Rob Flaherty here worked on the Harris campaign in 2024, former deputy campaign manager on Harris for president / Biden for president. And he was one of the people interviewed for the DNC autopsy, which ended up, according to all known public reporting, seemed to have been some kind of like messy amalgam thing that was not too useful to release on its own as a document. But this is one more useful, salient perspective from one person who worked on the campaign. So we're going to keep in mind this is an individual. This appears to be a white man. He'll have his own bias, his own perspective, and he's running for the bulwark. Probably maybe a bit more center. But this is his perspective on what went wrong as someone who went through the campaign. So we're going to read through this and then talk about it a little bit, and then we'll read through some other articles too, and we'll upload each one as separate videos. And then we'll compile them all into our master How to Win guide. Here's what I told the DNC autopsy. The report may never see the light of day. So the Harris campaign's head of digital offers his candid breakdown of what worked, what failed, and what Democrats have yet to learn. You may have heard about the Democratic National Committee Autopsy, the post-election report commissioned by the DNC in 2025 to examine what went wrong in the 2024 campaign. And you may have heard that it was never released to the public. Because of that, there's been a lot of rightful concern among Democrats about there not being an honest accounting of what went wrong and what we could learn from it. But there are a few people who have insight into what the autopsy report actually says and can share what they know of it. I'm one of them. I was deputy campaign manager of Kamala Harris's 2024 presidential campaign and of Joe Biden's campaign before that. My remit was things that touch the internet: social content, creators, rapid response, paid media, fundraising, digital organizing, and a few other odds and ends along the way. I was one of the few campaign staff the autopsy team actually spoke to, which is its own problem. And hey, if you appreciate the type of experience and strategic analysis that gets you an invite to speak to the autopsy, have I got a podcast for you? Now, to be clear, I have not seen the autopsy report. I understood that they would release the autopsy shortly after last November's off-year elections. The team putting together the autopsy first reached out to former campaign staffers in late September 2025, and I spoke with them in mid-October. It seemed odd that they were doing this so late, but I played ball for two reasons. One, it's important to look backwards to learn what makes sense for the next election, and two, the digital components of a campaign are usually misunderstood, assuming any effort is made to understand them at all. Sadly, true. But then the autopsy never went out. News coverage has focused on why the DNC shelved it. My understanding, based on Dem World hearsay, is that the truth is stupider than the fiction. No autopsy was released because there is no actual autopsy. Members of the autopsy team were in over their heads and struggled to put the thing together. What they produced was a loose summary of a bunch of interviews that were largely done without talking to the campaign or big spenders. The more interesting question is, what would an actual autopsy of the 2024 campaign have said? One overarching takeaway from my time on the Biden 2020 campaign, which we won, and the Biden to Harris 2024 campaign, which we lost, is that results don't totally define what lessons you can draw from a campaign. There were things we messed up in 20 and things we got right in 2024. Some folks might yell at me for this, but I think that in 24, we ran a good, not great, certainly not perfect campaign that was stuck in a hole we just couldn't get out of. The average shift towards Trump was significantly lower in the states where we competed than in the ones where we didn't. But you don't get a medal for the average shift being significantly lower. We lost and should learn lessons from it. No autopsy, not the DNC's, not any outside groups, and not mine, is going to show a smoking gun. There are too many confounding variables, too many what-ifs, but a smart, careful autopsy would still provide practical insights that could inform what to do in the future. So, in that spirit, I want to offer here the gist of what I told my team that worked on the DNC autopsy. Some of this I said to them directly, other parts of it I would have said if we had more time, and the rest has taken shape in the months since I spoke with them last year. I'll break this down into 3 parts. Part 1, what happened. Part 2, how it happened. Part 3, what happens next. This is an opinion article submitted to the Bulwark by the person who worked on the Biden 2024 campaign into the Harris 2024 campaign, being in charge of all the digital stuff. And it's what he told the autopsy team in an interview, and then his expanded thoughts that he didn't get to say for an autopsy report that was never fully assembled and never released. And it's useful to get these perspectives. And I have like a series of different articles and documents I want to read through that can help and then compile what we learn. A caveat before we dive in. This is just one guy's opinion. It is not the official Harris campaign's opinion, nor maybe even the opinion of the majority of those who worked on the campaign. There are very smart people on the team whose analysis and conclusions will be different from mine, and who will tell you that I am completely full of shit. When I shared a draft of this article with other campaign folks, some told me directly they disagree with parts of what follows. I'm sure you will too, but I was there. I have a different lens than most, so here's my take. Part 1, what happened? You have to have a brand. We didn't. This is the big thing I've been saying. I never like release this publicly. I might make a post on YouTube. In the wake of 2024 immediately, I oppose AI for like anything generative or creative, right? But LLMs and like AI models are really good for scraping mass pools of data. So I did do an AI search for like in Google Notebook, which is good for like deep analytical research stuff. After the 2024 like election, of give me all of the articles and like why did this happen? So it would like give like a synthesized kind of view into some data points. And one weird trend that like an individual person perspective or pundit never picked up on was this idea of like a brand equity, which now is like my big thing, right? Where it's really more of a marketing problem. Like brands in modern capitalism know to characterize themselves and communicate themselves through specific ideas, such that just seeing the brand name or the label does a lot of the lifting for you, becomes a heuristic. And a problem that any Democrat has to face is the first thing you have to do after saying you're running as or voting for a Democrat is apologize for your existence. Anyone on the left has to campaign in spite of their party, whereas on the right, despite no factual support for this, Republican alone as a label is a heuristic that to many Americans is seen as a shortcut that indicates you are tough on crime, good on economy, pro-America, like pro-Christian, which is like most Americans, and it's just really not fair. So you have like low information or no information voters like who will just show up to the polls and just vote for the Republican because they assume all of that. Democrats' brand reputation, the only positive we really have is like we're nice, but that is so little. That's so nothing, right? And frankly, when the opposition is like, oh, we're tough on crime and practical and good on the economy, it's like, okay, you're nice. So the takeaway is that Democrats want to help people, which is nice, but like, can we really afford that right now? Things get tough. So they vote Republican. They just think it's more practical. That is a problem. It's not true. Democrats are better on the economy. Democrats are better on crime. Democrats are better on even immigration, like, which is a weird one, right? But Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, was caught taking, was it a $5,000 bribe or a $50,000 bribe? It might have been $50,000. I forget, but look it up. Don't take my word for that. Was caught taking a bribe by, I believe, the FBI during the transition period. So, like, Trump won the election. He said, this is going to be my guy in charge of the border. But he doesn't have a job yet. So, like, before he got sworn in, the guy who's going to take be in charge of the border was caught taking a bribe. What's he taking that bribe for? What does that mean, right? And then Trump got into office, gave the guy the job, and then closed the investigation into the guy in like a brown paper bag, just like full of money. What? How did they get the reputation of being like, oh, we're like, tough on the border? No, you're not. No, you're not. The guy you put in charge of that was taking a brown paper bag full of money. What? That's ridiculous. But these are the kinds of things, right? Where it's like the brand equity game is so unfair. Add on to this, the media sphere. Every major news source is, at this point, pretty much, aside from like MS Now, which is so dorky, is like bought by big right-wing interests. Like Larry Ellison owns, I believe, CBS, maybe CNN, and definitely TikTok. Fox News, of course, is owned by Rupert Murdoch. And now there's all these competitor, even further right, crazier news sources like Newsmax and OANN, just trying to throw far-right propaganda just to capture the audience from Fox News. People in charge don't even necessarily need to have a political bias. But what happens is you have these people who are constantly being advertised, fear-mongering right-wing talking points and perceptions all the time. And on the left, they're not getting any message. we used to have that, especially penetrating into rural areas through local unions and like labor interests. That's how you would have like a democratic or left-leaning presence into your hometown if you lived in a rural area. These days, labor is dead, and they're still watching like Fox News and stuff all the time. So they're getting this constantly reinforced false perception of like brand equity that Republicans are good on economy and tough on crime, and they don't hear anything about Democrats besides what Fox News tells them to. So we need to find better, smarter ways to communicate in ways that appeal to everybody what the Democratic Party is about, and that needs to be something good and positive. That needs to be simple and effective enough that you can start putting it on signs or saying it, and it can spread even in communities where it's like against the odds, right? This means finding language that appeals to rural, working class people. Media reform is great, but you need to win the power first so you can enact media reform. How do we win right now? And the far right did this, right? The far right, the alt-right in 2015, they had no power whatsoever. Obama was in charge, right? It was awesome. And starting on places like 4chan, they had an understanding of how to make memes. And so they had like some sense of like what are like stronger messages that communicate further, communicate better, reach further, cause more engagement, and started like sliding in this like alt-right ripple effect wave. And to this day, lots of our like modern linguistics are inspired by like 4chan and stuff. Like they're effective communicators. Before 4chan, in the 90s, there was Rush Limbaugh, who was a talk radio host, not a career politician. And he inspired all of the modern day conservative like culture war stuff because he knew how to talk about things in ways that resonated with people, made them happy, proud, or like angry and disgusted. Yeah, so like this is a big point that we're starting to see come up. And as a designer, like I have some ideas. I have some very specific ideas on things like color and message. Like we need to use low-level vocabulary, short, clear phrases. So I did not write this because I did not work in the community. This is written by. I'm glad to see that now. I'm a designer, right? This media communication thing. Like I've done a lot of things. Like I will design like apps and stuff, and then I run the tests, and I do like lots of project management and user research for them, or I do research beforehand. Then like I work with a team, make the prototype, and then I do the tests where I shut up and I let people use the thing, and I take notes on what happens. And there's some cases where I can like even see something now at this point. I have a sense of this, doing it a bunch, and I think, oh God, this is going to be misinterpreted or misunderstood, or like we're going to, test this with 10 people, and like 8 of them are going to fuck this up and like miss the right button to click. Because it's just communication. Like, I don't think average people realize how low the bar is for average people. We need a really simple, clear language. Like Medicare for all, I think is the most efficient messaging we've had on the left in my lifetime. It's still kind of nerdy. Like Medicare is kind of a complicated word. And Medicare for all, is that the same thing as universal healthcare? So we're at such a point where now even Medicare for all isn't necessarily the same thing as universal healthcare and will be disappointing if enacted. So we have to change our whole rhetoric. Is that really the best way to do it? And it like hard locks you out of other healthcare plans, right? That's bad. Other like language you've had on the left, like Black Lives Matter. It's true. There's not really a demand. No kings. True. Not really a clear demand. These don't get further. Whereas on the right, build the wall. That is concrete. It's very straightforward. It's very deliberate. Right now, I'm the design lead for Digital Ground Game. Yeah, like a few weeks ago, like I did a charity stream for them because they were like trying to fund for canvassing events in the fall, and they were involved in like some really big canvassing events among like young people in 2024. And so I did a fundraising stream for them, and then I've gotten in touch with them, and now I've been helping them make like graphics and stuff. Yeah. They're kind of liberals. And like the thing about Digital Ground Game, its potential is that they're trying to connect like people who are like on the internet and like looking at videos about politics and like streamers or content creators about politics and turn them into like actual do a phone bank, do a volunteering thing, get involved. Even if you just have digital media skills, like I have a bad leg in digital media skills, I can't really be door knocking all day, but like anything you have, it's like a really smart, agile volunteer org that's trying to convert political fandom into political action, which is smart. Once you're in there, then at the same time you have National Ground Game, which is another org I really respect. I have another article from the creator of. National Ground Game is mirroring Turning Point USA strat of like widespread national, like through a bunch of colleges and young people, build embedded long-term things. So like Digital Ground Game is like take the fandom and then like a Zeus's bolt strike down into big one-off canvassing events. National Ground Game is like more of that long-term build. And these are the two orgs I highly recommend looking into if you want. Yeah, but it's about sales. And that's why Donald Trump wins. Donald Trump is not a business guy. He never has been. He's bankrupted every business he's been involved in, right? He's a marketing guy. Since the 80s, he's been putting his name up in gold, and people assume, regardless of the facts, that he is good at business. And that carries. Yeah, it's a sales thing. So of course, like, you know, a car salesman is like one of the optimal performers at this. So sorry, it's a big tangent. We're getting back to this article. You have to have a brand. Okay, we didn't, and that's the problem. Not only Democrats have a bad brand, they don't really have a brand. When you lack definition, that ambiguity is what reads as inauthentic and freaks people out, and then gives everyone the freedom to start writing a definition and a brand for you. And the problem is the most online people on the left were defining the Democrats as like being pro-genocide. And on the ground in real life, lots of people in the center were characterizing Democrats as being like obsessed with trans people and ignoring cost of living. Neither of which is really true, but never got to have a conversation on the details of those topics or on any other topic because we shut the fuck up in a conversation that other people got to have for us. And so if you ask people, where was Kamala Harris on the political spectrum? If you ask like an online Hassan Piker viewer, they'll say she's like a fascist. And if you ask like the absolute troglodyte that is the median voter in America, they would say she's like a radical communist. It was hopeless. It was hopeless. So my biggest lesson from the 2024 election is that tactics don't add up to a brand, and a brand is the most important thing in politics today. Without a brand that people genuinely feel is connected to your candidate's deeply held beliefs, your tactics will add up to nothing. You'll reach people, but won't close a deal. People often think of a campaign's brand as visual, the logo, for instance, but really it's the story of why the candidate got into the race. That's why is critical, and we couldn't clearly articulate it. Our research showed that we were reaching the voters we needed to reach, and they even liked our specific outreach. Our ads tested well, and we started to win on underlying issues. But something bigger wasn't gelling. It wasn't just us. Incumbents around the world were getting absolutely croaked. Labour's honeymoon in the UK lasted about 12 seconds. We underestimated then, and are underestimating now, just how disillusioned people are. There was and is a pervasive sense that nothing works and the institutions holding us up have failed. Media, government, business, no one trusts anyone anymore. For reasons both of the Democrats' own making and from simply being incumbents, Democratic brand sucked. This is really true, and I feel like I'm going crazy. A lot of my more like moderate or establishment, like liberal friends, will just point to Kamala Harris's specific policies in a vacuum and, oh, they're good, or there's more support for this issue. But this is really true. Like, there's something bigger that was not gelling. I feel like I'm going crazy because I swear this was a real thing. I feel like towards the end, like leading up to the election, we finally were getting there. There got to be this like fun party vibe around the Kamala Harris campaign that truly was a delight to be a part of, but it was like so little, so late. By the time people figured it out, like it was already kind of gone. And we didn't realize how poorly that Tim Walz was being received. Like he was actually getting badly harassed and slammed in a lot of ways. That was just a misunderstanding of what like rural conservatives would have taken a liking to. Yeah, but there was just like not this bigger macro brand. We underestimated then. Oh yeah, we read this paragraph already, right? In the face of that massive cultural shift towards skepticism and distrust, in some holes Democrats dug for ourselves, we hit the limit of what campaign tactics can do. We cut the margin everywhere we played, but the national deficit was too much to overcome. We could not break the perception that we were the status quo. And this is a big problem too. It used to be incumbents had an advantage because you were known already and established. But these days, and when it's such a fast-paced media environment and we're so focused and desperate for trust, and any like failure to deliver a promise, like, you know, there's a digital record of things that can last forever and a desire for something new all the time. Being an incumbent is kind of a liability. And running as the change candidate is very effective in general. Like the default brand you do inherit as an incumbent is you are status quo. You are the establishment. And these days, that's like a losing angle. There's a tide blowing against you. So if you're running for office, run as a change candidate. Because who knows, even for swing voters, you're like, well, this is okay. The temptation of just something new or something else can win. We traditionally think of swings as right, left, or left, right. The kind of person who, say, votes for Romney one cycle and Obama the next. In reality, today's swing voter is choosing between change and burn it all down. People just didn't trust our ability to make a difference in their lives. That is really true. I remember, like, I knew people who were like the Bernie in the primaries in 2016 and then went for Trump in the general. They were just so desperate for change that they were going to change by any means necessary. And a lot of people even knew then and now voting for Donald Trump is not like good or not going to work. It's just a spite vote. It's not good change, but it is change. It's just driven by like a hatred of the establishment that's so great to this point, that's seen as worth it in a larger calculation to them. Which brings us to the elephant in the room. President Biden never should have run for re-election in the first place. Biden's a good man. I think he woke up every day trying to do what was best, and I think he genuinely believed he was the only one who could defeat Donald Trump. And he decided to run again, irrespective of the wisdom of that decision. My view was that the best thing to do was to throw everything we had at getting him reelected. It was the only option to stop Trump. You may have even seen an email in my name making the case for Biden being the only person who could win. This is a rough topic and very specific to this election. It's less useful to our general autopsy of like what can other people take from this and use for their own races. But yeah, this was rough. I think Biden was just too old. He mainly had a stutter. This is a problem too, because I have a disability. I have like a lung disease. I have a bad leg. So I cough sometimes because I have a lung disease. Joe Biden has had a lifelong stutter. And a lot of the time, people who weren't really paying attention or didn't know that would mistake him stuttering as like a cognitive thing, when it really is a physical thing. In times of stress, his chin would lock up and you could see it. And he'd fumble his words just because he's like then spending too much mental energy focusing on the words he's saying and would fuck it up. Also, this is so sad. I read this once. It was whenever the Republican media was attacking his son, Hunter Biden. Those were the periods when he'd like be declined more and like have trouble speaking more. So that constant stress and worry. He was sleepless and terrified that they were going to come after his son, and he loved his son, and he already like lost a lot of his family, like who died, and like it was like his heartbreak that fucked with him, like physically and emotionally. And that's just sad. Like that's just sad. But he usually was kind of too old to carry this, and I genuinely think not running in the first place and just holding an election, even if he did run, like would have helped a lot. But I mean, you know, the past is the past. That was one specific thing. Look, I'm a political professional. I believed and still believe that once you're on the team, you're on the damn team. I do think we need to do a good job building more, by which I mean literally any sense of fandom on the left. We've let it metastasize into this toxic anti-fandom on the left, where to be a true fan of the left is to hate literally anyone running for office. At this point, the bar to consider yourself a progressive, you know, like, oh, I'm super like progressive leftist, whatever, is to hate on AOC, which I do not feel is productive to anything serious. I just don't see how that helps. I don't know. You know, I don't know. I think we should, yeah, be positive, be cheerleaders, be for something and not just against everyone who's trying. And if you can find someone who's for even more and even better stuff, great, love it. Even after the pivotal June 27th, 2024 Biden-Trump debate, the campaign owed it to down-ballot candidates and grassroots donors to keep up our energy. Grassroots donors were keeping the lights on, and if Biden was staying in, which I believed he was going to, they needed to see the campaign rally like they were. Our only option was to fight to the death. Turns out, well, that's what we did. That is very apt. Okay, so this part I might start to skip through a little bit because it's not as relevant to anything else. We'll see. We'll read it, but we'll go a little faster. Hi. We all knew Biden's age was his worst negative. At 81, he's the oldest sitting president, but his age was more than just a number, it mattered tactically. It was harder for him to communicate clearly, which eroded trust in his leadership. But the worst damage was to the perception that Biden could connect with people's lives and could be trusted to deliver. Even at the beginning, focus groups showed that clearly that the problem wasn't that Biden was perceived to be senile, it was that he was perceived to be too old to understand what voters were going through. That's interesting. I did not know that. I thought it was more the like, oh, it looks like he's in decline. But yeah, it is just when you're in different age brackets, you have different like issues of interest. And I do think it's very important we have someone who can like invest in our future, like long term, especially with the rise of AI and the environmental impacts. I've kind of felt like wholly abandoned by like geriatric leadership who has no skin in the game. But I didn't know that's what most focus groups showed. That's good to know. The perceptions around his age took away Biden's reputational superpower, empathy. The thing that kept him in the Senate for 36 years, got him on the ticket in 2008, made him president in 2020. Oof. Yeah, he's not relatable. He's too old. And unfortunately, the problems of Biden's age also preloaded the she's not in it for you perception that dog Vice President Harris. I saw the vice president rise to the occasion in all the obvious ways, in what ways people didn't get to see. But in a country fervently pissed off at the status quo, and with Biden's numbers being what they were, anyone from the Biden administration would have lost. Could Harris have rehabilitated the brand by distancing herself more from Biden? Perhaps there are ways she could have, but I doubt it would have changed the outcome. It was a quandary. If she had said, Joe Biden was wrong about X, and I disagreed vehemently, the obvious journalistic follow-up would be, Okay, so what did you do about it? Once we missed an early window for that distancing, anything late breaking would have seemed political and phony. It's clear in retrospect that what Democrats needed for our damaged brand in 2024 was a primary in which a real, well-funded candidate running on an economically populist campaign could have teed off against the Biden administration. Even that wouldn't have been a sure bet, but a primary and a 1-week shotgun primary 107 days out from the election are not the same. Once we were in it, we were always playing around the edges. Yeah. Paid and organic brands need to align. Throughout the campaign, there was a disconnect between what people were hearing from us and about us in earned and organic media and what we were saying in paid media. Online and at events, the campaign came to be freedom and brat girl summer. Most of that happened organically. People latched onto those frames and they stuck. Personally, I liked freedom. You could probably tell from this video. I thought it could effectively combine our economic and anti-authoritarian arguments, and it had its fans. Ad testing showed it was actually among our most persuasive pieces of content of the whole campaign. Interesting. I'm curious if either of these are the Okay, let's see a video real quick. Let's see if this tells us anything useful.
In this election, we each face a question. What kind of country do we want to live in? There are some people who think we should be a country of chaos, of fear, of hate. But us, we choose something different. We choose freedom. Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose. Yeah, freedom, freedom, where are you? 'Cause I need freedom too.
I have notes, I have thoughts.
Freedom not just to get by, but get ahead. The freedom to be safe from gun violence. The freedom to make decisions about your own body. We choose a future where no child lives in poverty, where we can all afford health care, where no one is above the law.
I'm gonna tear this to pieces once it's
Promise
done.
of America, and we're ready to fight for it. Because when we fight, we win. So join us. Go to KamalaHarris.com and let's get to work. I'ma keep on running 'cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
Okay, yeah. Got it. Okay. Weird to have two end cards there, especially with like flashing colors. Okay. Weird. Okay. So some issues with this ad structure. And for contrast, look at like Mamdani's video. I think Mamdani is like the person on the left who's gotten it more than anyone else in history. And part of that, I believe, is because his mom is like a director, right? Like it's not just him. It's like his mommy knows how to put together a story using visual media. But yeah, the guy took a design class, a storytelling class, and I'm frustrated to tell because I can't remember the name of one book I want to read that had like a mapped out thing for plot structure for these things. But okay, how this starts structurally, and I don't like how it's doing it. It could be better, but it's still pretty good.
In this election, we each face a question. What kind of country do we want to live in? There are some people who think...
Okay, right there. So it starts by posing like a question, which is a bit abstract. There's no reason to necessarily care about the question yet. And it's too long for a hook. It's too drawn out with just like B-roll. It's just an American flag, which is cool. There's a bit of showing like Kamala signs. A lot of candidates feel this temptation to like throw their name out first. People will just hear it or see it if they don't finish the whole thing. But like, it's useless because you don't actually care when you see that. And a lot of people are not just voting based on the name you recognize. It's like, feels so condescending to me. Like there has to be some investment in any of it. Sorry, there's a fire truck going by. I live in a city. Buy tax dollars. Buy tax dollars. I hope they stop their fire. So yeah, not really a reason to care. Then the first thing it's actually doing of substance is showing Trump.
Should be a country of chaos, of fear, of hate.
A country of chaos, I think, works because it's like the sort of thing you play to people's safety concerns, which is a very low thing on the hierarchy of needs. It's a pretty high priority. That works. Of hate and fear, of hate especially, that's more higher order. That's more like moral values. You're reaching less people with that.
But us, we choose.
It's also doing like some people, like it's, I don't know, it's talking about the candidates, but it also feels like it's throwing shade at the supporters of the candidates, which is going to alienate them.
Something different.
And then it's we choose something different. And even through all that B-roll and all this, on this chanting, it's like a solid 10 seconds
Freedom.
before she says we choose freedom of just saying Kamala. So the central thing they're putting is like, it's more about the people, like you choose Trump or something different. The alternative is just Kamala. not an idea, not something you care about, not something you're necessarily for. It's just a person, and that's not sexy. It does nothing for you. It's kind of underwhelming and depressing, right? What effective messengers do and campaigners do is they'll give you the values and then pose themselves as I'm the person who can do this for you. And obviously no one else is, right? Someone like Mamdani, he's just talking about affordability. And he's like, yeah, like this issue, like I just care about this thing. You also care about this thing, right? And then he's like, oh, if you vote for me, and he does that at the very end, like if you vote for me, I'll give this to you. It's not about him, it's about the issues. The Democrats have had a major, major problem with this. Like we're too person focused and they are so disconnected from marketing and psychology. It was a big problem for Hillary Clinton, honestly. It was, thank you for the gift. Thank you for the hand. On YouTube. 100 joules. Cool. Yeah. So, with Hillary Clinton, it was like, I'm with her, right? It was about her. It was about her being a woman. I'm a woman. I think it'd be cool to have a woman president, but like, that does nothing for you, right? It's too selfish. It is not landing. Whereas if you run on ideas and values or like concepts or even specific policies or things people want, you're just the person who does it, then you're just a person who has something in common with them. And it's about the thing that you want to care about that helps you personally. It's a way deeper investment. It's more, it means something, right? So that's a difference, I feel. I don't know. Yeah, so like it's not about the person. The person is just a means to the end. A lot of people voted for Donald Trump because they were scared of immigrants because propagandistic media channels told them to be, or they were like hoping for personal economic prosperity and they thought, that guy's rich and he knows how to make money. So if I vote for him, I could be that too. But it was that selfish thing, right? It wasn't because they liked Donald Trump as a person. Now they like him as a person because he's a cult of personality. Like that's what that party is now. But at the time, like that was that kind of thinking, right? They got something out of it. Even freedom, like what do you get out of it? What does that mean? Like they haven't defined that. I don't know. Freedom is good. It's like a buzzword that's positive coded that we've all been exposed to a lot. But, you know, not a lot of juice. Not as much juice as I think they think it is or they want it to be. Yeah. So they put the problem first. They put their opponent first, which is a problem. And then it's just not that. So then what is really going to do is like, we're not Trump. And then eventually they get into talk about issues, but it's just B-roll and just we're not Trump is the only thing that's been established up to this point.
Not just to get by, but get ahead.
Okay, the freedom not to get by, but to get ahead. That is great. That is great. But like we're 40 seconds into the video, you know? It's not really working. It's not really working. And then it's just B-roll of different people.
The freedom to make decisions.
And you put gun violence second. That's such an issue that helps your base, but everyone outside of the base really hates. And I'm sorry, I wish there was gun control. I want schools to be safe. But I feel like the angle we keep describing this on falls along party lines and has never once won or built support outside of party lines to win. We're missing something there, right? We're missing something. Yeah.
We choose a future where
Decision about your own body. Okay, so this is a ad targeted to the base. This is targeted towards women within the base. Your own body, but it's like about abortion. Yeah, their target audience is women. They're talking to women. So this, you know, this has limited utility. It's not convincing or growing the base at all. It's positive because it's, you know, it's for your own people. But if they did a focus group of like people outside of the base, it's not going to hit as hard. If you're focusing just people in the Democratic base, why are you focusing on words like freedom? Those are like more virtue signal words that appeal to more like patriotic, moderate, and conservative, like heartland voters, you know? I don't know. It's a bit of a mess conceptually. It's not really just about freedom. There's a lot going on here. It's not very clear. If you look at like Mamdani's videos, they're all like single issue, like targeted, specific, and they have a theme. What this should have done is lead with the good things you want. That we agree on, the same values we share, the same like opportunities, right? We're like, we're freedom, yeah, go America. Then you introduce the conflict. It's like plot structure, right? Act 1, here's our ordinary world. Then there's a conflict. It's a bad thing, we need to stop. And you create that pressure to stop it, that call to adventure, you know, until we have to cross the threshold. That's when you introduce, hey, here's these good things we want. Here's what's in the way of that, and all those bad things and those bad voices that are building up and building up and building up. And then you introduce, and I'm your hero, and I'm going to stop that. I'm going to just stop the problem. And then it's this big relief and this like huge skyrocket investment. So you're like, oh yes, okay, we can do something about this, right? And then once you're at that point, you're like, yay, we can stop the problem, but only if you vote for me at the very end, by the way. Then you're like, oh hell yeah, I'm already bought in, right? So this is kind of backwards in a way. And I think it fits the broader trend we've seen from this whole campaign of we don't really know how to talk to people outside of our own base or grow any of that. And it's not convincing unless you're already on the side. Even a lot of stuff that Democratic social media puts out, even if it's like to the base on their own accounts, it's just like, vote for this person or like retweet if you like this candidate. It's like, of course, people who like this candidate are going to like this candidate. We're bad at front loading a reason to like this candidate if you don't already. And so Democrats have kind of rested on our laurels of this education divide, an informational divide. In an informational landscape, an educational landscape, where we are in the minority. So we end up with a minority. And a lot of moderate establishment libs will like spin their wheels trying to refine their policy platform, which is only speaking to the informed voters who are already on your side and care enough to check, and does not raise support or awareness outside of that. Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, the Conservative Party in 2020 and in sorry, from YouTube chat, the British Conservative Party hit a low point in 2024 and is rebuilding back among young people by focusing on Mamdani style videos, focusing on single issues of their most popular stances and ignoring their less popular stuff. Yeah, that's how you do it. Yeah, because it's popularist and it's specific. Okay. So that was the Kamala Harris freedom video. But in the long run, I don't know if I was right. Either way, my side lost the internal debate. After David Axelrod panned the spot as base mobilization on an episode of Hacks on Tap, we moved on from using it in paid media. That's true. Yeah, that was just for the base. It was not for anyone else. It was not convincing, not clear, not offering anything specific. People who are not already on your side. It's hard not to look at the success of an affordability message in the time since the campaign and wonder what would have been if we had focused just on that. True. Then again, would it have been convincing in 2024? Harris was the sitting vice president. Contra conventional wisdom, when we messaged people, through paid media mainly, on middle-class economics, it worked. Harris started to close the gap on whom voters most trusted to handle the economy. People even started to associate her with middle-class economics. Looking back, though, middle-class economics is a political buzzword that means nothing to anyone. Trump's message was much clearer. The economy feels bad, and Harris says it's good. Those vibes were tough to argue with. Yeah, this is where having 107 days to put a plan together just really hurt us. We got pulled all over the place dealing with subplots that were hard to plan for in advance, given the race's new context. Trump's negatives were not going down, and there were other issues on which we were advertising. 3 schools of thought developed on how we should prosecute the case against Trump. Some wanted to say he was unfit for office. Others wanted to call him unstable and unhinged. And some wanted to warn that he was going to get unchecked power to do bad stuff. The compromise position was the triple U construction: unfit, unstable, unchecked. It will shock you to know that it didn't work. Yes, that's 3 different conflicting messages, and I want you to care about all of that. There's a lot of wanting you to care that I see, especially from the left, on different things, all the time on everything, especially everything related to Trump, and it's exhausting. And there's never just like providing you something worth caring about, you know, that you get good return on investment on. Like every day there's a new news story about like how Republicans are corrupt and evil. And it's like, yeah, no shit. You knew that. What do you want me to do about it? And to a point, it feels alienating. And I think that's why Democrat support is still so low. Because it feels kind of offensive, right? It's like, why are you coming to me and complaining to me? Isn't it someone else's job to do something about this? And yeah, we need to vote for like more people in charge to get in power to keep these bad people in check. But like, what do we do about it? You know, like what's the plan? What's the way out? Because otherwise it's just asking for emotional labor without like a helpful, constructive pathway or anything like that. And it's just confusing and messy and too much. Like give us something to focus on, like a lightning rod kind of thing. Because conservatives are usually speaking to an, on average, less intelligent and informed voter base. They are way better at like sanding down their messages into like a clear, exact, simple thing, and they distribute those talking points, and they know what they're about. And they know what they're about, and the Democrats have to care about everything all at once equally, and if you don't care about all of it a lot, you're a bad person. Shockingly, that doesn't work too well. Given our positive message that wasn't quite focused and negative message that was difficult to digest, it was easy for the other side to define Harris. Defining, brand, yes. The digital team owns this. I own this as much as anyone else. My colleagues and I leaned into what resonated for us, but that contributed to the campaign's flailing octopus in a boxing ring problem. Yet that doesn't mean that the answer to our problem would have been to do the most persuasive thing and stop chasing what gets reach. We could have focused more on prescription drugs or whatever the top polling issue was. That would have been a driving message. That would have been driving a message when we should have been building a brand. A brand is a story about who you are and what you believe that everything else, the ads, the organic content, the surrogates, the creator appearances, the events, levels up to. The Trump campaign understood this intuitively. Everything they did pointed to one narrative. We kept punching in different directions. Lesson for next time. What I told the folks putting together the autopsy report is there needs to be a direct pipeline between what's working on organic and what goes up on paid, and vice versa. Your organic content and earned media are telling one story, and your paid content is telling another. You don't have a messaging problem, you have a brand problem. No amount of ad testing can fix that. I don't agree with all of this. I don't agree with this necessarily. Like, it's still the person working in a campaign, like the staffer class kind of thing. They're blinded by the idea of like a specific person and a specific person's stuff. That I don't like at all. The like, oh, where was it? A story about who you are and what you believe. That's not true. They don't care about the person, right? The person should be interchangeable. And this is why Democratic Party approval stays rock bottom, is because we're still just focused on individual messengers and not like, this is a broader brand and idea of which we have messengers, right? And that's why like all momentum the Democratic Party has lives and dies on a singular person's merits. And that's why we lose, because like unless we can pump out like a consistent pipeline of Obamas, no singular person is that charming and persuasive and like good at stuff. We just don't have, like, people on average just don't have the sauce. It does not need to be about a person. But if you make it about values, that works. And also, it's not that the stories are like, or the individual topics or positions, the issues are separate than the message, right? That are separate than the brand, right? And I think the brand is the message. Like, these are kind of the same, because all this intuitive, it's the same. What, how these fit together is like what Mamdani did, right? I don't think Mamdani actually talked about affordability all that much. He talked about specific issues, though, that all painted to a broader thesis of affordability. And it's really just that thesis, like that message was the brand. And that's why that worked. Every single thing he said or did was really just a different example or expression of that. But you could put together the pieces in your head. Like that was just a pattern your brain would draw, which is really, really effective. But it was not about him as a person. Like, fuck him as a person, right? Also, he set up a system where, you know, if Mamdani died of a heart attack, there's a pattern by which someone else could step up into his shoes and then keep it going and still be someone worth voting for. It's not living or dying just by him as a person specifically. Joe Rogan in the battle for attention. I don't believe it would have won with more time. Ouch. The switch from Biden to Harris in July 2024 shook up the race, but things eventually reverted to the mean. In each of the first few weeks, we had big ticket events that let us dominate the conversation and consolidate soft Democratic voters. Switch to Harris, the announcement of Tim Walz as Harris's running mate, the convention in Chicago, the Harris-Trump debate. And then nothing. It was 2 months of scrapping for attention against the single best attention getter in the history of politics. Trump had his daily stream, McDonald's, the True Socials, the dump truck, eating dogs and cats, and on and on. He dictated the terms of the conversation. The longer it went, the worse it got. Trump had his vaunted podcast strategy, but polling pre-election actually indicated that more voters saw Harris on a podcast than Trump. It makes sense. His strategy was to talk to one audience a lot. For reasons that had mostly to do with limits on the candidate's time, we shot for big interviews that reached a series of different audiences. All the Smoke, Call Her Daddy, and so on. But it brings us to the whole Joe Rogan thing. I somewhat infamously was involved in the Rogan negotiations. We agonized a long time over it. I was in favor of doing it, but it was a close call. I didn't think it was going to be a clean interview. In fact, the best case scenario would be a draw, but we needed an attention event, which in my mind made it worth doing. It's also true that Rogan's team kept moving the goalposts. The whole Beyonce concert was actually an excuse to go to Texas to go on Rogan. Had Trump not booked his Rogan interview that day, I believe we would have done it. I suspect that it was Rogan himself, not his team, jerking us around. The folks we spoke to on his team were professional and gave the impression of acting in good faith. Rogan, by contrast, would go on to misrepresent our discussions. Some of the topics he later claimed we didn't want to talk about were actually topics we suggested talking about. But the Rogan show didn't happen, and without it, the next big media moment for us was Harris's October 16th appearance on Fox News with Brett Baier. Doing Fox was a spectacle event for the campaign. It was also, if I recall correctly, one of our biggest fundraising spikes that month. But it was really it in terms of breaking through. Trans ad was about our implied brand. This is a rough one. First, I want to clear up a basic factual issue. The trans ad from October 2024 was not the Trump campaign's most effective ad. Good. According to our data, that was the ad from July 2024 with clips of Harris saying Bidenomics is working. But the brilliance of the Trump team's ad strategy was that everything was a proof point. In the same way that all of Mamdani's videos, right, is a good example of a media communicator, all implied a greater like message or brand or idea of affordability through specific points and examples. Even in negative campaigning, that's what Trump was doing to Harris. A core narrative. She cares about liberal shit, not you. Her position on immigration, she's focused on the wrong thing. Harris talking about trans prisoners, focused on the wrong thing. Says Bidenomics is working, focused on the wrong stuff. It was brands, not messages. The way this guy uses brands and messages, I would wholly disregard. I don't think he gets it, how intuitively the same these are. In the social media age, as a digital native, we exist more as ideas and as people. And he's coming in this with a trad media view of how these things are separate. It's all just ideological conception. Every form of existence we have is an expression of that, a different form of that. But it's really about that core mimetic concept that we're sculpting to fit into different shapes. Like I could talk about, oh, it's about like videos, not images, but like it's really just the same idea we can squish into a different format. There's just like a generational perspective difference, I think. The trans ad worked because of what it implied, not what it said. It was devastating because it seemed to confirm what the Trump folks had been saying all along. The ad put us in a bind. Responding to it directly meant fighting on their turf, on an issue we were losing, using paid media, without even responding to the core thing it was triggering in people. She's focused on crazy liberal stuff, not you. We made 5 or 6 ads in response and tested them against ads about the economy. Focus groups and ad tests showed that centering on the economy was a better move. It made Harris seem like she was focusing on the right stuff. So, not wanting to make the fight about an issue we were losing, we talked about the economy more. A literal rebuttal would have been a loser. I absolutely stand by this decision. Look at the 2025 elections in Virginia, where Republicans made trans issues the core of their advertising strategy. It failed because voters didn't find it relevant. Trump camp's trans ad worked at getting attention because it was shocking, not because it was effective on its own. Its real power came from its implied storyline, which in the digital era is more critical than ever. When noise regularly overpowers the signal, implications matter as much as anything. The lesson: when you get hit with an attack ad like this, ask not what claim it's making, but rather what brand it's building. The best response isn't to relitigate the fight. It's to fight harder on the underlying issue that voters actually care about. This is so true in design and research, by the way. Always ask people why and why and why. And a lot of like Democrats especially will focus on like debating the facts and logic of a specific thing and not realize like they're debating literal liars who don't care about the specific thing, but are trying to just constantly communicate a deeper implied narrative, usually like a hateful conspiracy of some kind. And if you're not like engaging with that, you're losing. Because you waste more time looking through petty specific details and facts while they're just successfully selling a much larger, bigger picture, vaguer idea at a far faster rate than you can. Don't miss the forest for the trees. And yeah, every campaign should have like one theme. Affordability works pretty well. Patriotism works pretty well. And just like every ad you make should be like some expression of that. Hi, Colin. Thank you for the heart. I think what we're witnessing is the system expressing itself. Kamala lost because she was supposed to. The overall traditional conservative ethic is never going to allow capitalism to question. I mean, there are ways to overcome it. I do think it's a skill and strategy diff, frankly. I really do. I really do. Yeah, it's about the audience. Yeah. Yay, our community just teared up. But yeah, no, I think there are ways to do it. Like Obama, people forget how like revolutionary Obama in 2008 was. Like it's kind of spawned the Tea Party. Like I mean, there's such a wave of energy in response to the 2008 crash. Like Occupy Wall Street. There's so much in that like 2008 to 2012 period. How do Democrats manage to make being anti-establishment their theme? Well, the good news is Democrats have nothing right now. So it's very easy to punch up at the establishment when they control none of the establishment. Second of all, the way that people hate like establishment Democrats, because I think everyone, like no one likes them, right, is actually a very small faction of the Democrats who are left. It's like old, like Chuck Schumer and stuff. Even Hakeem Jeffries clearly got the notes and has been changing rapidly as a person. Like what he's saying, what he's doing. He's fighting, he's talking louder. Like, honestly, I don't know. It's kind of cool if you look at it in the vacuum. That's one part of it. So it's not even all Democrats are establishment Democrats, right? Like a lot of them, especially a lot of them also, if they were just establishment, are losing now. Because even if corporations can give you money to keep going, like no one likes them and they lose. We have like a new generation of younger people who have like more, frankly, kind of socialist ideas who are like, hey, let's just do something new with this. This party is basically a husk for the taking by people with good ideas who want to help and have new ideas about how to help. And I love that. Yeah. So that's one part of it. Generations of population abused by the vicinities of America's poverty. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but like, you know, we gotta do it, right? But like even that Kat Abdul person, like moved to an area pretty recently. It did not have local ties to win, but I mean there's so much energy for something new and some change. Like it's I don't know, I'm a bit hopeful in this. I think it's really easy to take a big swing and win against like the capitalist establishment, you know? Oh yeah, old but still socialist. Oh yeah. Okay. The HQ accounts, a real success and an unresolved question. The Biden HQ and Kamala HQ social media accounts were, by most measures, a big success. At least to the extent you can say anything is truly a success when you ultimately lose. I disagree with this. They surfaced narratives that went mainstream. They consolidated the base at a moment when the campaign needed energy. They moved at the speed of the internet. But here again, I want to talk about the brand question. True. The HQ accounts got a reputation for being for the girls and gays. True. As a girl and a gay, true. The moment the account switched from Biden to Harris, the campaign channeled a vibe shift that showed up in the polls. You needed to consolidate the base, make the campaign cooler, and have a campaign voice that could be more flexible and nimble than the candidate's own. KHQ was important for that. True. Yeah, no, it was way faster. It felt way more in touch. But I don't think what they were doing was wrong. I think they're doing it very effectively. I don't think they were doing the right thing. Which is a big problem with Democrats, right? Like you could give them a media team tomorrow, and they can certainly start doing media, but I don't think they have a great sense of the target they're aiming for. I often hear that the account turned off men, or that they should have used the account to persuade. I'm not so sure. An organic campaign aimed at reaching young men wouldn't look like a big TikTok account from Kamala Harris. The way TikTok works is to funnel users towards stuff they already like. So how do you persuade undecided voters via a platform that's primarily sending your content to people who are already Kamala fans? Better use for that tool is to build your base and expand outward. I have a thought on this. Okay, the problem with this. Yes, TikTok puts you in a pool of stuff you already like. All social media algorithms do, right? It's affirming. Because I started this account trying to reach out to conservatives more, and it didn't work. I was like, fuck it. I'm just gonna, let's talk openly about building a stronger left. Fuck it. The problem is the way that Kamala HQ focused on a vibe and on an in-group audience. It was a girls and gays in-group audience who, to be totally honest, don't actually vote. There's a lot of young, cool, evil gays who are lazy as fuck. Several of them are my friends, right? There are several young women who vote. Lots of women do vote Democrat. There are also a lot of women of all ages who have grown up their entire lives feeling they don't really have a voice, or their voice isn't really important and not to be taken seriously. And especially if they embrace a kind of like girly feminine aesthetic, will like internalize that a lot and aren't really going to act, even if they should. This is a problem. Like there was a big swing and a push desperately hoping to run abortion as a central issue in hopes that would get all these women to turn out, even vote against their husbands for abortion. And they just shut up and they didn't vote, or they didn't like just voted Republican. They became submissive and just didn't do it. So yes, this account spoke to an in-group. It was not a big enough in-group to win. Even if they did turn out and vote, it was not a big enough wave to win. Like if they are executing a brand and executing it well, that needs to be a big enough brand to appeal to most people. And they didn't really have that. And yeah, that just kind of sucked. And yeah, it did alienate a lot of men. And that's like the thing, like men have been saying, honestly, since like 2015, that they feel like in the wake of focusing on social issues, in all these campaigns, lots of young men feel like there's nothing in it for them. And they feel kind of ignored, and they just don't vote or turn out. And they will, even fall into the alt-right pipeline just to feel heard or centered. Part of that is selfishness. part of that's also just a reality we need to grapple with. And I don't know. I think it's worth having at least one person on the ticket who can be just kind of like a role model for young men, someone kind of masculine and tough. I think Governor Westmore of Maryland is great for this. I think Governor Gavin Newsom is great for this. Like, there needs to be a man that boys respect, look up to. I think would make them feel heard. Natalie Wynn did a great job making this point, like years ago this point, but I've never forgotten it. We have done a successful job at calling out the old script for masculinity as like, this is problematic and here's why, and it's bad. Good job, 2010s feminism. But we never provided a new script for masculinity or manhood. So it led to a lot of boys and men, even who like were self-aware of like patriarchy and whatever and felt guilty about it, to not really feel like they had a home or a place to go, which made them very vulnerable, even like on the left who were aware and agreed with those critiques, like towards like alt-right recruitment. And that's a problem. That's a problem. I think they need like the left for boys needs to be a thing. Because generationally, those boys are now men and they're starting to kill women and girls. So it's kind of becoming an everyone problem. Persuasion happens in paid media, in earned media, and in podcasts, kind of long form spaces where people hear things they don't go looking for. And in that way, Kamala HQ was able to exploit the brackish delta between Harris supporters and the mainstream. Issues like Project 2025 emerged from lib talk, and in that case became Trump's worst negative of the campaign. More on that later. Having said that, I can see how a rah-rah base mobilization tone, set on the most visible piece of the campaign's organic presence, makes the whole campaign look like it was for one group and not another. Yes, it's great that your most viral content is speaking to the in-group, but that's also the brand the out-group sees. Yes, and in a race we lost in brand, that myopia matters. Yes, this is it. This is it. A big problem also is like, so a lot of like leftists, people who tell them as leftists, can be very online. They use ad blockers on everything, and they don't follow traditional media. They're just watching like YouTubers or streamers or podcasters, maybe some podcasters, but even that, it's like a little too normy, right? So the problem is you can exist in a media bubble where your even if you see some stuff or hear some stuff about a candidate like Kamala Harris, you're not getting any direct, like in their own words, expression of that. They didn't see the ads. People say, oh, Kamala Harris, she didn't even have any policies. I'm like, what are you talking about? I heard her ads on like Spotify like 10 times a day, right? But these people are not curious enough to look at their campaign websites, and they just expect you to do the work of doing that. But that's a big, big, big problem. Mamdani was so effective because he made himself so self-evidently visible in what his policies are that it was you couldn't really hide from it. Even the people who are like trying to criticize him for being like a radical Muslim or whatever, all they can find are pictures of him smiling in a suit. And there's no evidence to support any of that. Like, they have to hide and run from actual Mamdani to even like make a slanderous claim. Like he's so good at like controlling his own definition. And that's what more people need to do. I also hate the idea of saying like, oh, like a harm reduction candidate. They're like the lesser of two evils. Like, actually, it's the most good, right? At the same time. I mean, what could Biden do about trans healthcare in Florida at a state level? Like, Biden stopped any federal anti-trans bullshit. Like, Biden's the reason we have gay marriage. Like, Biden's very pro-LGBT, but like these different roles have different duties, and part of that is like a civics understanding gap that leads to the wrong people being blamed for stuff, right? If you care like I do about like we need to protect trans rights, it's a state level thing. We need to rebuild a nationwide democratic institution, not focus on a few min-max races in a few states, but like actually play in all 50 states. And we need to build those local leadership pools, right? Because like there was not enough infrastructure in Florida to fight that shit. If Republicans in any state wants to like be transphobic, they need to be scared of Democrats kicking them out of their own seats in their own states. And that's the problem. Like, under Biden's leadership, transphobia did not become federal law. But that's the domain of his leadership. But yeah, we need like those like state and local things. And frankly, I think a lot of the Democratic Party needs to build that infrastructure fast and has not done enough for it. At the same time, we have lots of like small DSA chapters, which are very local, who are desperately like want some more power, but are kind of flailing as like useless kind of third party like nothing things. They should franchise. They should fucking franchise. I think like there should be some really smart deal making. Get some big candidates, even like AOC, help like negotiate and facilitate those deals. See if maybe they can work together and build some hybrid like. Find even those like little leftist orgs who don't want to affiliate politically, be like, hey, can we just let you guys be the Democratic chapter for your state or community? Because we have this Democratic Party infrastructure, but we don't actually have any Democrats in your state. You could just be yourselves, and we'll just call that Democrats now. You can define that part. We need a new identity anyway. You guys are onto something. Like I think, and here's our like infrastructure and tech and like guidance on how to win a campaign and run, and we'll send you some volunteers. That would be really fucking efficient. Share some polling and research. I think that'd be pretty good. We need to like network and web that together. But yeah, no, if you want to like protect places of that needs to be bottom up growth. And I think the completely clueless, out of touch Democratic establishment should frankly just find all those like progressive and even leftist groups and just let them do it. Like just throw the infrastructure where it actually exists. So then like that way both groups benefit. The local like even DSA type chapters, they gain a lot of local support and like infrastructure to be more professional and level up and look more viable, look less like a fringe third party. And then the Democratic establishment can help quickly rebuild the completely absent local infrastructure by like literally just effectively like helping to rebrand and like partner with whatever's actually working there. How do you build a political infrastructure environment? With a lot of hard work and a lot of it depends who's in charge there. Like I think it'd be really fun once we go through this autopsy that's starting the week after. I want to start like looking at candidates, good or bad, and start just making ads for and against different candidates. It's pretty damn easy to do, actually. I just spread them on social media. Like, you can do a lot with a little. You can do a lot with a little. And at this point, frankly, any Republican has an embarrassing track record of being pro-pedophilia and anti-working Americans. It's pretty easy to substantiate if they're at all loyal to their party. And if they're not loyal to their party, run ads targeted at Republicans saying they're not loyal to their party. It is raining really hard, so I apologize if my stream cuts out, probably because lightning strikes and cuts out my power. And I apologize if there are any rain sounds that are distracting. But I hope it's soothing. Okay, the issue is that digital messaging can't solve deeper problems. That's true. Having the social accounts stick just to persuasion messages would have meant they didn't resonate with people they needed to get fired up, and a more man-heavy brand, whatever that means, would have felt weird and out of place. That's not true. I feel like affordability are just like, void screaming about how hard it is because capitalism sucks is pretty fucking universally resonating among young people. I think this guy's just a bit of a bit too old, like a generation too old, and he doesn't understand. There are absolutely more gender inclusive brands that can rally a base and be persuasive to outsiders. They just don't listen to young people. There are like generation wide issues. The Kamala HQ account reflected whom the content resonated with. Our political coalition was urban whites, college educated people, and working class voters of color. That coalition simply isn't big enough to win. Ultimately, that's a campaign coalition problem, not a social account problem. True, but how are you going to get people into the coalition? Yeah, we lost pop culture. We need to win pop culture again. We can win pop culture. It's fun. Gaza cost us, but not in the ways people think. This is a big one. Given the Biden administration's position, Gaza was an impossible issue to communicate around. Protesters drove coverage away from campaign events. Digital creators, or even supporters, were afraid to say anything nice about Biden because their comment sections would get rocked. This is so true. This is so true. It became poison. It created this culture of shame around saying anything like, I want better healthcare, or like, I support trans rights. You couldn't even say, I support, like, I want the better option for trans rights. Like, it would cause this, like, silencing effect. I think this can be done against Republicans now over the really unpopular Iran war and really over, what's another thing? They're all pedophiles. They all support pedophiles. If you like publicly identify as a Republican, the response should be like, you're a pedophile, you support pedophiles. Create that like shame and embarrassment and make fun of them whenever they speak up. And so they won't like come out of the woodwork to support each other. And that creates like a hushing effect and then like isolates them all. And then support drops because it like kills their momentum. It kills their interconnectivity. So that like momentum can't carry from one person through the next. Please call them out on their pedophilia. Republicans keep voting to maintain child marriage. Republicans support purity balls, which are child grooming events where they play marry young girls to their fathers. Republicans support child beauty pageants. Republicans support child marriage. Republicans have opposed the full release of the Epstein files at every opportunity. Eventually, enough agreed to the legislation to release them, and now they've still not been released, and they've just quietly made excuses for that. But these guys, yeah. I legitimately believe that Suicide Squad, Concord, and Dragon Age killed us. That's the thing. Okay. Fuck. I wish I could go back to like 2010, okay? If I could have had a time machine, I'd go back to 2010 and just through the 2010s, as I would see the rise of like anti-feminism and anti-SJW content online, I could thread that. I want to win those boys over, and I make videos about it anyway, okay? Here's the problem. Women are not respected. And there's this hope of like, wow, we can make like a Ghostbusters movie with women. Wow, wouldn't that be cool? I'm like, it's the first time I don't know how something with women before. And then like these things will get roasted because they're bad. They're just bad works of art. And people are supporting them just out of like, we should support women or whatever. And it drove a lot of young boys and men crazy because they felt like people just giving bad media a pass because there's women in it. And a lot of people on the left, to be honest, were giving bad media a pass because it had women in it. Here's the real problem and the real argument to make. I think it's bullshit that women are getting just reboots of properties starring all men that now have women in them. Why are there good original properties with women? We should make more of those. I think it's bullshit that women were getting like properties like games and movies with like worse scripts, with worse gameplay. And then we're supposed to like them because they're women in it, right? It's like, I would think it's bullshit that we like any work that had a woman in it was getting worse marketing, was getting like worse support. And then like it's women are getting like these hand-me-down, like leftovers, like the rejected worse shit. And then it's expected, oh, because they're women, that should carry. It's like, no. It was embarrassing, and then women were left holding the bag. Like women were being blamed for starring in something where we were getting scrapped. And instead of just opposing, like, no, it's good actually, we should have been like, yeah, it sucks. It sucks. I agree. We should get more original stuff with women in it. We shouldn't have, what if Thor was a girl? We should just have like more cool original female characters. Why don't we? Wouldn't that be better? Hey, here's like Tomb Raider. Yes, Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider's cool. Tomb Raider stars a woman. Isn't that awesome? I like Lara Croft. Also, I can make this argument because I'm a lesbian. I don't mind that she has big boobs. I think that's cool. That's pretty cool. But to be fair, I think we should also recognize she's as talented as an archaeologist, as an adventurer. We should respect that in the same way we respect Indiana Jones. But also, yeah, she does. She's hot, you know? What if Godzilla was a girl? Yeah, it's always like, what if male thing was a girl? And it's so derivative. Like, we should get more standalone things. And I feel like we could have like built a lot of agreement on that and said it like caused this cultural rift. And then like the left lost in every single issue. And it was that again and again and again by like out of touch Hollywood companies again and again and again. And they created this like cultural massive hole. I tried watching Captain Marvel once on a plane. I fell asleep. It was mid. Captain Marvel is a character. Cool original character. Cool female character. Really OP. Respect to Captain Marvel, like in a fight, you know, pretty good. But like it was a bad movie and we should say it. Alien. Alien is the peak media. You know? Like we could have built this, like come at this through like a shared love of positive and like a shared honest acknowledgement of the negative. Yeah, Bayonetta. There's great stuff. But like that's where we lost the culture war. It was in the 2010s over like women and also people of color. Just getting like the scraps of like, wow, we could recast this as a person of color. It's like, why don't we just have more cool original black characters and stuff? Why do they keep kicking the can on making new Blade movies? I want to fucking see that. Blade is cool as hell. But instead we just get like smarmy white boy number 67. Fuck that. I hate that so much. Like it's, you know, so it's created this decades-long depiction of like white men as authentic, even in like all of media and pop culture, and anyone else as like a fake B-tier recast, like AstroTurf kind of thing. Just because creatives and like industries in power don't bother to let minorities have cool stuff. True, Wesley Snipes is a great Blade, but yeah, but I want more stuff. Doesn't be Blade. I want more options. Give us cool shit. Starring different people, like Star Trek. The cultural impact that shows like Star Trek had, even like 90s, like in PSAs and stuff, and like cartoons, like wow, like cool, like diverse finger, whatever. It was like so awesome to flex of like people are so interesting. There's so many of us. We all have our own different things going on. Isn't that cool to just check each other out and appreciate each other? And it kind of collapsed into this like only white men and only minorities insofar as they like exist as like shallower recasts of white men. They're mad at the Odyssey now because of Elliot Page, but honestly, Elliot Page is fantastic casting. Are you kidding me? For a Homer epic, having a queer twink who looks haunted by the weight of the world at all times, like he's carrying some great guilt he cannot share. He's impeccable casting for a Homer epic, to be totally honest. Like that is the vibe, and anyone who thinks otherwise is like historically illiterate. Yeah. So anyway, Gaza. Yeah. Many voters watching the horrific, painful footage out of Gaza became a moral question that we didn't have a good answer for. In ways that may not be reflected in a poll, it meaningfully reduced enthusiasm. As one person from the campaign told me, we spent the entire election with a giant rotting fish around our necks. True. This is one of the places where Biden's era, not his age, mind you, but his political era, led him to misread the politics. This is a really fascinating point. His frustration with Bibi Netanyahu was well covered and spilled out into the public. But Biden just misread the nation's support for Israel as an endless, fixed object and missed how much the ongoing visuals were seeping into the public consciousness. Yeah, you're seeing the politics move today. Senators who would have never considered it in years past are now signing on to the Sanders resolution to block offensive military aid to Israel. Rahm Emanuel, of all people, is raising doubts about funding the Iron Dome. But we were seeing this emerge on the ground during the campaign. My hot take is that the eventual Democratic nominee in 2028 will support conditions on aid to Israel in one way or another. I have two big problems with the Democratic media apparatus right now. One, there is no clear or coherent top-down messaging. But frankly, I'm not sure if I do want that. I don't want Chuck Schumer like crafting a message. I don't think he'd be good at it. I think it would feel fake and inauthentic regardless. Number two, and this is a real important thing, there is no bottom-up pipeline. Something like this, of like just how goddamn indefensible it is to like advocate for any Democrat, no matter how progressive, in the face of like the Gaza stance, the 2024 cycle. I mean, it was so toxic and poisonous and stopped any conversation. There was no way for any creator or person to pass this up the line to Democrats in power. Like, I don't need like a creator chat or whatever just to like get headlines or some shit from the top. That's not really useful to me. I need some way to be like, hey, I'm on the ground here. I want to be your cheerleader because I like good things. I like LGBT rights. I like women's rights. I can't defend you because I keep seeing this. I keep seeing this like poison chalice. Like, the politician is just wrong here, and I don't think you understand how bad it is, and I need to tell you that in a way, like in some way where I know you're hearing that, and then we can change. Like, there needs to be some like helplines. Just like I need to shout up a big tube and be like, you gotta fucking stop defending Bibi Netanyahu. Stop enabling Bibi Netanyahu. I know you hate him in private, but like in public, it's not coming off as like you're against him, and like you don't understand just how bad the public has flipped on this. Like, please, you've done something bad, you've done something wrong. I don't agree with it. And like there was no way, right? Even a politician, frankly, sometimes has more strategic information, has more like information about their whole voters as a whole. There's a lot. Politics is complicated, especially on a national and global level. I understand that. There's a lot of nuance there. But they don't need to necessarily just take an immediate act on like something that one person tells them. But they were missing some data that like anyone could have told them and wanted to tell them. And without being able to tell them directly, everyone was just void screaming about it onto social media. And it just turned everyone, rightfully in this case, against the Democratic Party. Because like there was no helpful direction to aim that feedback in. So it was aimed against it as like the most toxic thing. And unfortunately, the result of that is now we have a worst case scenario for Palestinian safety and well-being. We could have stopped this, but like there was I don't know. Free Palestine. I don't know what the fucking this was fixable. Wilmington was a killer. This is like a very different kind of thing and more specific to this campaign. But I still think is useful as like as we're transitioning to a new media age. The people of Wilmington, Delaware were kind and very welcoming. It's a clean, well-maintained city. It's close to a lot of stuff. It made sense for President Biden to want to have his campaign headquarters in his hometown, as everyone does. But we are reaching the end of the destination headquarters. COVID changed the way young people work. We struggled even with getting young people to move to states to organize. Wilmington, for that reason, loomed large over some of the campaign's problems. People just didn't want to move there. Wilmington created 3 distinct disadvantages. Hiring. The campaign's 2 biggest recruiting sprees were in November or December of 2023, that is, just after the October 7th attack and the start of Israel's invasion of Gaza, and then in June and July of 2024, that is, just before and after the Biden-Trump debate. So we needed people who were both willing to move to Wilmington and be a young person willing to work for a candidate under constant online attacks. These factors produced a pretty unflappable and flexible team, and I think is why they handled the flip from Biden to Harris so well, but the hiring process took a lot longer. This creates another problem too, where the people who are getting through that hiring process are going to be the ones who don't really mind the negative feedback about Gaza and about the Biden debate. Which means you're creating people who, even if they're aware, are choosing to be a little out of touch. Not good. I think that caused some of the out of touch effects downstream. For instance, people who weren't there all the time. Heck, I left every weekend until midsummer 2024. A lot of people did. Yeah, just have remote hiring. Increase your pool of candidates. Are you kidding? There are some people who want to help. Lots of Gen Z and Gen Alpha, if they believe in you and you are authentic, will go out of their way to donate to you, to volunteer to do anything they can to help, for free. But it just needs to be accessible. Infrastructure. We couldn't support our staff. We literally couldn't find apartments and Airbnbs in Wilmington. The same goes for office space. We actually had to split the HQ across 2 buildings, which led to a weird house divided dynamic. Would we have won if the campaign headquarters had been in Philadelphia or DC? Probably not. The idea of picking everyone up and moving them to some remote location for a campaign is a relic of the past. For all the many difficulties of campaigning under COVID restrictions 4 years earlier, the 2020 Biden campaign benefited greatly from having talent all over the country, both because it allowed us to hire different types of people, and because people who lived day-to-day in Missoula had a different lens on what was happening from people who lived day-to-day in one place, specifically one place in the Acela corridor. Part 2, how it happens. Someone who once held a job similar to mine told me the list of things you'll want to do in this role is infinite, and there will always be things you'll want to get done, but will miss out on because there just isn't enough time. It was sage advice. In both 20 and 24, we had the theory of the case about the internet close to right. There's a couple of things I think we missed in both elections. In 2024, I think we had a harder time executing it. Part of this was the fact that we had to switch from the Biden-era campaign, which was basically begging people to volunteer with us, to the Harris-era campaign, where we were basically getting stampeded with energy. There's a lot we did well. I think we were right about the media mix we took on as a campaign, and the volume of content approach we took on with the HQ accounts. Yeah, that's true. Flood the zone is so useful. Flooding the zone, just having a lot of content, deeply useful. The right has beat us on this every single time. We also built a grassroots fundraising campaign that reflected the values of both candidates and paid off handsomely. But ultimately, we struggled to scale digital coherently and in concert with traditional organizing. We had a good sense of what we wanted to do with influencers, content creators, and podcasters, but we whiffed on setting up a cohesive plan. Yeah, the list isn't comprehensive. There were other smaller things I think we screwed up and got right, but I'll spare you those and focus on the big stuff. My hottest take, you can always tell when a TV consultant has made an organic social video. It's too slick and overproduced. There are little words on screen with little whooshes. Sure, some people will watch it because you're paid to put it in front of them, but they'll watch it like that guy in A Clockwork Orange with his eyes pried open. It won't work. Most political ads suck. They're not fun to watch. They're not interesting. They don't use the medium very well. They're blunt instruments, and in the sea of 8 hours of content people watch per day, they just blend in. We still need ads. We just need to do them better. A lot of Democratic donors and strategists are growing increasingly skeptical of the effectiveness of ads and are shifting towards organic tactics like clippers and unbranded TikTok accounts. The fact is that the places we advertised ended up with smaller overall political shifts than the places we didn't, which is pretty instructive. Let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. The way of the future is realizing that paid and organics are different columns but must work in tandem to build a brand. Maybe the process should flip the standard one. See what works in social media, then put it through a persuasion layer. Contrary to what DNC Chair Ken Martin has been saying, the 2024 campaign spent just about evenly on digital and TV. As an aside, the Autopsy folks told me Martin was speaking off of different numbers than they had. I can't address the television part. On the digital side, this was a substantial improvement on the traditional campaign media mix. In 2022, the typical Senate campaign spent about 70% of its budget on linear television and 30% of it everywhere else. That makes absolutely no sense in today's environment because voters just don't consume information that way. There are some folks who said we lost in 2024 because we spent too much of our advertising on digital, but you could just as easily say we lost because we didn't spend enough. In fact, the Trump team in 2026 is basically advising candidates to do away with television, which I think is probably wrong. This is good. Yes, I do think that social media is far more effective than television at this point. However, I do think there are lots of people, especially like poor working class areas, right, where like they're going to a little bar after work and there's a TV on. Useful to get those ads there. Very useful. Consumption habits are clearly changing. Television is increasingly centered on a smaller number of higher viewership events, like live sports, which makes ads more expensive to run. Digital can be more efficient and more targeted. There are lots of people who make their money by selling TV ads, and most of the arguments they make for not spending on digital did not pass the "is there any normal voter who only watches television" test. The campaign spent a lot of money on social ads for this precise reason. It was the right choice. A month after the 2024 election, the New York Times ran an article for which I was interviewed that included some criticism of our campaign's media buying, suggesting it was inefficient and that Trump leveraged list matching to target folks more efficiently. In reality, our targets were different from theirs. Many were geographically clustered, so zip code targeting was more efficient. We used digital as a broadcast tool with some tentacles that could reach into different nooks and crannies. Going forward, I'd recommend that digital ads be considered the purview of one integrated paid media team, which was sometimes the case in past campaigns. But that's tricky. You need a structure where digital doesn't get eaten alive by the incentives of TV media. Yes, also David's on my list. I'm working through it. So this is a case where like things are decentralized, right? The messaging is decentralized. The means are decentralized. The paid and organic media, like the social media and the traditional media, are doing different things. And it failed to define something coherent. As a young person, like youngish, I'm not so young anymore, I guess. I see media, I mean, it's mediums, right? It's plural mediums. You can make content and repurpose it for like an Instagram post that's just picture, or like for a video, or like a long form video, or like a podcast. It's all the same thing, just in different forms. Hi. So I think this absolutely needs to be one thing, and you need like essential, basically a messaging. Like, what is your messaging? It needs to be like one apparatus. Like you have your policy shop, and then like some messaging or comms people, and then you need experts on different mediums that can just repurpose that same shared central message into those different forms. The problem that they seem to have is that just like coming up with like what are your ads or messages are going to be, like that full process from beginning to end is just separated by medium. What are you doing? So they're not only talking about things different ways, they're talking about different things that they're coming up with independently, which is ridiculous. Because even if your brand is going to speak to more people than others, that's you. That comes from the candidate. It comes from the campaign you want to run. And it comes from the central ideology of what you're actually doing. Start with those ideas. Start with those feelings. Then translate that however you need to. Don't let like TV viewers dictate what your campaign actually is, because that's inauthentic, right? Just find a way to talk about what you want to talk about and relate it to them. It's insane to have an independent expenditure and a campaign with two different strategies. I'm not here to litigate the war between Future Forward, the super PAC supporting Harris, and the campaign. The beef is mostly on strategy. The super PAC thought we weren't spending enough on TV in the right places, or talking about the economy enough. The campaign disagreed with the super PAC's approach on spending, media mix, and the mix of positive and negative messaging. As I suggested, this race was about defining a candidate early. Yeah, definition. But also consistently. You can't give up on that later. That's what seemed to happen. They did a better job defining Harris early, and then they let like Republicans just take the control back. Future Forward had some data somewhere indicating that only late spending mattered. Okay, super PACs usually handle the negative campaigning, but FF had data that said negative ads don't work as well as contrast ads. Sure, they thought our messaging was diffuse and not focused enough on core economic issues. True! There's probably a grain of truth to that. More than a grain. They, like us, had to change candidates when Biden dropped out. There were always going to be stutter stops along the way, I get it. But wherever you stand on who was right or wrong on these specific questions, it is simply insane to have a campaign and a super PAC that are not aligned on the plan. Take just one example. Saw that Democrats writ large were greatly outspending Republicans on digital persuasion. We planned to pull back and cede it to outside groups. But given that Trump's positive approval ratings were going up, we also thought going negative on Trump was important and knew FF wasn't going to do it. So we kept digital spending at only marginally reduced levels to push Trump's negatives higher. Irrespective of who you think made the right call, this is an example of us wasting money and efficiency because two organizations are punching in two directions. Yeah, it's bad. One big thing with this, my frustration with the Kamala Harris campaign, they had the money. One of the big reasons, if not the biggest reason, for going with Kamala Harris is because legally, technically, as part of the ticket, she was the only one who could inherit Biden's war chest and keep going with it. That was like her starting bonus. She's got a ton of money. And she's kind of established already, but I think being an incumbent is a disadvantage, not an advantage these days in this era. So they picked Kamala because she had a ton of money, and then they spent the money in an embarrassingly disorganized, inefficient, self-contradictory way because they did not understand the modern messaging media landscape at all, did not understand the voters they were talking to, and basically just wasted a ton of money, which sends a bad sign to a lot of donors too. Like it was bad. Digital ads probably should mostly live on the outside. A moment ago, I argued that digital ads should be the purview of the paid media team. Let me now add a caveat. The campaign should basically do only positive digital ads that involve the candidate and paid social content amplification. The rest should probably live on the outside. This was the crux of one of the mid-campaign scuffles among the campaign and Future Forward. They believed we were underspending in places where only we could have more efficient rates near the end. They weren't wrong. Campaigns get preferential TV rates, so it makes sense to keep TV within the campaign. That's not true of digital rates. We had a lot of factors we were juggling. In 2024, we spent a lot on digital ads, mostly because we believed Future Forward was less focused on it than we would have liked, and because we weren't confident that they would be spending in those places, time frame, and ways we would have hoped. Assuming coordination rules stay the same, we should let outside groups handle the bulk of digital advertising. But again, this all requires a jointly held theory of the case. The candidate has to be in the room. Digital presence is a direct reflection of a candidate's brand. It's how voters come to understand who a candidate is. For this to work, the candidate needs to be actively engaged in the planning and execution of their social media presence. Period. If they are not, it won't work. This isn't a specific criticism of Harris or Biden. Delegating social media is still standard practice in campaigns. This has to change. When Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez endorsed Biden in 2024, she did a whole day on the trail for us. I spoke with her about her content strategy, and she led the discussion for 45 minutes. AOC had very specific thoughts about the story she wanted to tell, the kinds of clips she wanted, the framing of the whole thing. It was a remarkable conversation. Likewise, Beto O'Rourke, whom I worked for in 2019, had deep and strong opinions about what went on his social media. You get very different results when the candidate is completely hands-off. Yeah, in the same way we would expect a candidate to have a message or something they want to talk about to people in their own style of speaking. I don't know why a lot of traditional media people seem to think that social media is something different than that, when it is also meant to be an authentic extension of your own self-perspective. Yeah, like you should have opinions on what goes on your social media, and the same way you'd have opinions on your in-person conversations with someone. I mean, and yeah, most of the digital ads were driven algorithmically, so they went to people already voting for her. And then they kept making content for that same audience. And also that in-group audience they were working for was too limited and small coalition anyway to work. Like you could mobilize all those people, but you kind of need some white men in there just statistically if you want to win. So it flopped. Okay. This isn't just a generational thing. You can build a process for someone who is not a digital native. You'll never succeed if you do a long staff-level pitching process that ends with handing the candidate a briefing document 30 minutes before they do the thing. Some changes that I think could work. Standing meetings where the candidate lays out how they want to talk about the day's news and their key messages. We'll do weekly content planning on what they'll be filming, posting, responding to, and amplifying. Candidates should be doing daily, yes, daily, recording without a script. If your reaction to these suggestions is that sounds naive and ridiculous, well, that's part of the problem. We had a brief moment with Biden where there was a Hollywood producer trailing the campaign to help with their content. That person noticed we called weekly recording time digital time. That's a standard term in politics, but the producer said it sounded infantilizing, as if we were less than everything else. Yeah, as if we're less than everything else. Picking point maybe, but the remark stuck with me. Creator strategy. Hard side and soft side have different jobs. Biden 2020 campaign was the first with full-time creator staff, which was tasked with focusing on influencers, social media personalities, progressive outlets, and podcasters, referring to the current sense of those roles. It's true that there were predecessors and prototypes, like the campaign bloggers that started popping off in the early 2000s. The Biden White House was the first to have dedicated staff for creators. But while creators are critically important, we need to get our heads on straight about them. This is something we'll see pop up in other articles too that we're going to read on Future Days this week. How you deal with creators. Because it's very important, and there are very right and very wrong ways to do this. Persuasion on the internet is the art of generating a really loud set of fans who create a magnetic force for others. This is true for Taylor Swift, as it is for Burger King, as it is for the Democrats. You need, if I can mix metaphors for a moment, an enormous partisan ecosystem that's always banging the drum. But maintaining that ecosystem cannot be the campaign's job alone. The party writ large has to foster it and sustain it over the course of many years. Like we were talking about earlier, brand. Build a brand people like. Build a fandom people like. There isn't one for the Democrats. There's an anti-fandom. There's an anti-fandom. And then there's like suburban wine moms who are nice people and will show up to No King's protests because they have empathy. But they're doing that more out of a personal moral conviction than like a part of any formalized democratic anything. The campaign and Super PAC fucked up how we handled creators in 24. And I think I own that fuck up pretty directly myself. It was a mess. We didn't have a robust pre-walls up discussion about creators. I just didn't think to set it up on the front end. It was a fiasco. Part of the problem was the campaign was hamstrung by coordination laws, and nobody was quite sure whose job it was to do what. Creator engagement across the ecosystem ended up being ad hoc rather than systematic. Consider this. Non-campaign lawyers said that if a creator was paid by an entity outside the campaign, our engagement with their content had to be limited. But no one knew which creators were under contract outside of the campaign, so we were stabbing around in the dark. Learn from our mistakes. Build the signaling system as early as possible. Creators aren't ads, they're trusted voices to an audience. Folks thinking about 26 and 28 campaigns often ask me how much they should be spending on paid creators as part of their paid media budget. Wrong question. Creators can't be seen as paid media. True. I get that it's a useful heuristic, but if you treat creators as an ad, here are the talking points to relate to your audience, you're missing the point. Creators are just as valuable for message testing as for dissemination. More creators doing more stuff means more chances to see what content works. Giving them a tight script misses out on their value at scale. That is really smart and really true. The Tom Sawyer campaign right now is like paying people to read the same scripts, and it's just bombing. It's bombing. It's worth instead having like pitching candidates or campaigns or ideas or having big events. You can go and you can say and do whatever you want about it, and then see what's working, what's not. See which communities are taking to it and what are not. It's a huge missed out research opportunity. 3 things campaigns should be thinking about. Bags of cash are not really the best way for a campaign to pay creators. Many creators bristle at the idea they're bought and paid for, and your audience will eat you alive, even if they think you are. A campaign's best dollar might actually be spent on travel and hotels for that creator, as well as the things he or she needs to facilitate an interview. These folks are small businesses, not media conglomerates. They don't have the budgets for multiple days on the trail. Absolutely. Like someone like me, like I'm not paid by anyone. I would reject it if I were to be paid by anyone to just read like an ad or a promotion. It would feel unauthentic. It's damaging to the creator's trustworthiness. It's like actively a harm. But if any candidate was like, hey, I will literally pay for like your Uber, your plane ticket, your hotel, just so you can come, like we could talk and you can say whatever you want. That is really useful because then like that facilitates that at no cost to the creator, but it's not like being paid for an opinion, right? That's paid for the opportunity to communicate. I think is really, it feels better. Local creators matter. They're often more influential with a tight community and less exposed to competitive pressures than national creators. Yeah, I think that can go both ways. It sort of depends. You need both. The campaign should focus on how it deploys the candidate. For creators, the candidate is the best asset a campaign has. They should be focused on using that time to reach the audiences they need. The candidate can break down the walls with tough to reach or very influential creators. We should treat those big creators like major endorsers who need to touch. This also means more time for the candidate to spend with them. The space is still the Wild West, true. There are a number of tactics that have become standard practice on the right that are probably going to move over to the left, such as paying creators under the table through LLCs for consulting contracts or otherwise. Each campaign in a 28 primary is going to need a plan for this sort of thing. Does the money flow? If so, where from? We will encounter, as we did in 24, creators who say something like, pay me $5,000 or I'll endorse your opponent. What's your plan for that? That's nightmarish. I did not know this was a thing. It's just beyond my comprehension to me that people can be so selfish and evil. I'd be like, you know, hey, do you want to talk with our candidate? I'd be like, okay, pay me $5,000 or I'll endorse your opponent. Jeez. Some people have principles. Maybe not many of us, but some of us do. I think this is really interesting of paying creators, not just for like positive ad coverage, right? Which would be bad, but as consultants, I think is great. I think, frankly, there should be like a free, like open contact line, like via email or something for like influencer people on the ground to be like, hey, campaign, by the way, this thing you said or did is out of touch and here's why. You would get really good feedback. But I also like specifically like having some focus groups or something like that, or like, you know, having like consultant conversations. Very, very useful. I think there's a lot to gain from that. Progressive creators need access, but the outside group should handle financial support. That's interesting. The cultivation and financial underwriting of a progressive creator ecosystem should be the work of the party and allied organizations over the course of many years. Absolutely. It can't be the job of the campaign in a 3-month sprint. Absolutely. The campaign needs to staff and activate progressive creators and to include them in a two-way conversation about messaging and what's working. Yes, a two-way conversation, please. But the campaign should be spending its dollars on reaching new voters. The other entities should focus on building a durable, healthy, progressive ecosystem. The bottom line is that paid creator work needs to be somewhere in the campaign's coordinated ecosystem, but campaigns' funds themselves, to the extent that they are dispersed for this, should go mostly to creators who don't normally talk about politics. The campaign itself needs to own that relationship building. The outside groups should handle building and supporting a progressive media ecosystem that is healthy, sustainable, and exists for the purpose of changing culture, not just winning elections. They should get busy building and underwriting the center-left creator ecosystem now that is ready for, and that's well beyond, the current campaign cycle. Excuse me. Organizing online is important and different from organizing offline. Digital organizing is more than using digital tools to organize offline. Organizing needs to make sense for the ways people communicate and get information today. But our campaign had big questions about this. How do you use digital spaces to actually organize? How do you get people to organize their local Facebook group? How do you get people to do relational organizing beyond geographic bounds? In their most recent election, the Labour Party in the United Kingdom had volunteers organize and recruit in their local Facebook groups. Our own 24 campaign struggled to operationalize this and other forms of strictly online organizing for a bunch of reasons. Scale, operational issues, and good old-fashioned campaign turfiness, of which I was certainly a participant. Some of these problems were just an unavoidable result of flipping candidates and then managing the explosion of attention. Nowhere was the flip more taxing than on the organizing team. The questions of how traditional, relational, and online organizing should be merged remain unresolved. We ended up with a blended compromise model that has lately received some correctly negative reviews. For that reason, I won't go too deep into it. Just give that link above a read. No, not now, thank you very much. I'll say, though, that beyond the many logistical reasons why it didn't work, there's a basic strategic thing we never resolved. Community is no longer solely geographic. You had geographically based organizers trying to organize people's online lives. Tension between geographic organizing, quasi-geographic online organizing, and interest-based organizing is what we must untangle for 2028. What does it mean to have a neighborhood organizing team with strangers talking to strangers when people are on group chats with their friends all day? How many different work streams can a single volunteer be a part of at once? How do we make the experience great for volunteers? How do we report on it? How do you do all of those things, or one of those things, or other things? These are hugely important questions, but they will be invisible to campaigns not thinking about the way people are actually engaging in the community themselves in 2026. We are on the right track with clipping, but missed opportunities. The writer and market analyst Ed Elson had a great piece recently about how everything is clips. Streamers, podcasts, whatever, they're creating long-form content for the purpose of generating short-form videos, or clips. It's not hard to see how political candidates' future is clips too. Yes, you should have a candidate do long-form interviews. Yes, you should have the candidate make bespoke content. But the distribution method of most of those things will be short-form clips. This was the initial insight of our HQ accounts. They let us post short-form clips of Republicans doing crazy stuff and a higher volume of clips of the boss. But generating clip content is harder than it sounds. Candidates don't like to wear microphones, and for a good reason. They're annoying and make every interaction feel forced. And candidates don't want cameras always present in the room, because they want to be able to have meetings in private. They also want a plan or memo beforehand, so they don't say anything embarrassing. All reasonable. But this means there are many frustrating obstacles to content generation. Let me tell you, the amount of time digital people spend on negotiations around microphone wearing is absurd. Set-piece videos are becoming less important than the ambient content. To that end, I'd trade 60% of digital time for having the candidate mic'd up and on camera at all times. I need to have a team of smart editors and social clippers who cut them down and distribute them from a network account. Then there's the question of clipping distribution. This is a fascinating topic you don't see a lot about. The clipping ecosystem is huge and growing. Smart people are throwing real money at building progressive micro creator and amplifier ecosystems. Platforms may very well tamp down on this, as both Instagram and X have indicated in the last week or so. But we could have used this strategy in 24. The non-campaign entities did a bit of this, and a lot of success from the HQ accounts was because of clipping. But we could have gone further in expanding the ecosystem to volunteers, staff, and commercial clipping farms. The play for a campaign is pretty obvious. Campaigns should have content fellows, either paid or volunteers, in different geographic areas whose job is to clip and remix content from the campaign. They should be paid on performance. Geography matters in this case because TikTok's algorithm considers it. Interesting. We should use the commercial clippers too. The right certainly does. The new hot thing is hiring clippers and paying them a living wage to run social accounts. It's a good tactic. Of course, clip amplification is just a tactic to convey a message. We must pair their signaling power with good content and a coherent brand to reach beyond algorithmic bubbles. Here's what I think. I think it's really good to, have clipping like this. That takes like a lot of, that's hard to do, right? I think shorter scripted bespoke things are really easy to plan for and like batch out and do. I think that's probably a good idea. Stuff like this I also like. I think that headed into 2028, and even for 2026, candidates need to spend less time necessarily at like formal gimmicky paid scripted events and more just like little stuff. Thank you for the flower. I would love to see candidates like just at naturalistically like food bank events, like reading to kids in a library. Get caught helping. Let it be recorded, like be caught helping. Have that stuff recorded and clipped, If it is organic and scripted, like make it very deliberate. I don't think as much time needs to be spent, especially at a national level, at like big gimmicky campaign events in like major cities. Like people who are on the left and online and informed and curious will be seeing social media. Like be caught in like local small towns and like in local places. Like in person doing stuff. And then just let people online see that you are doing that stuff. I feel like that gives that like authenticity in person. It gives that authenticity to the online audiences because they believe you are actually doing the stuff naturally, right? Like be caught helping. Downsize the approval process. But also scripted content is really good. Like short form, those are really clear and useful, especially single issue. So there's a clear record of who you are and what you're about. Very, very useful as well. In our constant digital conversation, speed matters. Our HQ accounts ran on a simple system. There's a signal group. The team posts anything they're going to put out. Anybody in the group has 5 minutes to object. Otherwise, we're going. No edits, just objections. That lets us move really fast. It lets us experiment. It lets us put up the volume of content that actually matters in social platforms. The alternative is a standard democratic approval process where someone holds everything up with, well, I don't agree, or changes language, and you finally post something hours after it was relevant. The perfect cannot be the enemy of the good. Yes, if you're a serious campaign, figure out how to get content out the door fast and accept that sometimes it will be imperfect. Yes, this is a big thing in authenticity as well. Authenticity is like gold currency among younger voters. Yeah. Don't get caught up and then be overproduced. By the time you get perfect, it's too late. Meanwhile, Graham Plattner is one of the most problematic candidates I've ever seen in my life, and it's kept working because it just kind of keeps going forwards. I don't even agree with it, but that's something there. That's an objective data point. Bottom-up messaging works. The right thinks about many of these things differently than the left. They know the power of the implied brand and how to connect a viral narrative to a persuasive one. By contrast, we tend to poll test our way into running a lot of mealy-mouthed ads about prescription drugs or whatever. The right uses its vast social media ecosystem to organically test messages that have viral heat. There's a tremendous conveyor belt of content. Things that go viral on X make their way to podcasts, which make their way to Fox News, which make their way to the president. By contrast, Democrats find a message that works in testing, put it on the TV in hopes it moves people. Yeah, this like top-down thing is like so stagnant. It's bad. I talked with someone who works for a prominent Democrat, and they think of traditional media first, and there's no digital outreach. It's so after the fact. It's so bad. It's so bad. I think we should start like researching social media, and I'm building tools to scrape social media so we can get the most effective, highest engagement headlines and stories, and start to pull from that and post and spread what's actually working as a starting point rather than going the other way. Stay tuned on that. Give me another week. In January 24, we spotted a TikTok that said something like, "If you're supporting Joe Biden, tell me why in the comments." The comments were all about Project 2025. We were surprised. Project 2025 seemed academic and hard to explain. But it turns out that it appealed to the sort of paranoid style of the politics of TikTok, a conspiracy that could be discovered. It's because no one trusts anyone anymore. Our campaign initially branded it as Donald Trump's extreme agenda, but the HQ account team used Project 2025 anyway. It ended up being top-performing content for us at a time when the internet was particularly unfriendly to us. The candidates started using it in speeches and eventually in paid media. Some folks from the campaign's coalitions team worked with Taraji P. Henson to get her to speak about Project 2025 at the BET Awards. The whole left-wing digital ecosystem took something that no one had heard of and turned it into Donald Trump's worst negative. But we pulled away from Project 2025 in advertising. Democrats don't self-sabotage challenge every single year. We started to think the attacks defied credulity. We saw people respond to Trump distancing himself from it in focus groups and polls. I thought this drawdown made sense at the time. I now think that was a mistake. We should have kept pressing our advantage, even as Trump ran away from it. Yeah, just don't let them leave. Like, that's the thing with the Iran war right now, right? It's sticking. It's having a lasting impact. Gas prices are having a sticking, lasting impact. They want to distance themselves from it, but that is up to you to consent to let that happen. Or 3, what happens next? We're running campaigns built for a world that doesn't exist anymore. In this final part, I want to briefly talk about what I think is coming and what we have to do about it. We don't have a coalition big enough to win yet. Yes, Democrats need to find a way to appeal to more moderate, independent, and heartland style, like rural voters, blue collar voters, people who value hard work as their thing. Like they don't want to feel like they got help or a handout or socialism, even though they need aid. They need economic justice and fairness. It's better framed as a fairness issue. Like they are doing the hard work. They need to be rewarded for that. Same idea, different framing. Over the last decade, Democrats have traded downscale voters for upscale ones. People we picked up along the way, college-educated suburbanites, wealthy urbanites, never Trump Republicans, don't outnumber the people we lost. This is a 30-year mistake, and yeah, Chuck Schumer, among others, are to blame. The resulting coalition, which has involved a shrinking share of working-class voters of color, especially men, just isn't big enough to beat a motivated MAGA base. This was obviously true in 2024, but it was already nearly true in 2020, when Biden won the battleground states by a relatively small margin in the middle of a pandemic and an economic collapse against an incumbent the country had soured on. If the wind had blown in a different direction just a little bit, we would have lost. Democrats will likely win the House this year, even with all the congressional redistricting going on. We may win the Senate, but those wins will paper over the structural problem. Our party still speaks the language of, and to the priorities of, people who care about our institutions and believe they basically work. Oh, who wrote this? This is someone who was in charge of all the digital media on the Biden 2024 campaign into the Harris 2024 campaign. This is what they told the DNC autopsy team. Whew. And yeah, I agree. Yes. One useful thing would be find a way to responsibly and fairly and without bigotry take a stand against Israel's war crimes. Because if the Democratic Party does not do that, a lot of people are going to go looking for like the most rabid, full-blown pants off anti-Semitism they can find. That's, I think, the reality right now of what the choice is. Like, there's no defending this. You can see the polls, you can see this tanking, and anyone's like, well, what would be the pro-Israel party? Like, that's just statistically a bad idea. And I think it is way more useful if the Democrats can run away from it first and then leave Republicans holding the bag of being pro-Israel, which they are. Like, Donald Trump is like basically like letting Netanyahu, a war criminal, do whatever he wants at the expense of Palestinian lives. Like, it's such a cancer issue. It was like I mean, it hung like a weight around the necks of Democrats, and Republicans are just getting away with it. This is the easiest W. Like, I know it's foreign policy. I know it's weird. Obviously, affordability is more important, but like, come on, we can do this. We can do this. Please let Republicans have to justify their blatant, full-blown, couldn't be any more in support of Israel. Please leave them holding this bag. So there isn't a left-right solution here. This is an up-down problem. The voters we need to win back are the ones who already had and lost. The multiracial working class coalition we thought we were assembling in 2020, which has frayed badly, especially among men. They're waiting for a party that sounds like it's on their side against a system that isn't working for them. This requires economic populism with teeth, candidates with genuine charisma, and hardest of all for a party staffed by institutionalists, a posture of real contempt for a status quo we are arguably a part of. And we need to do it without losing the new members of our coalition who joined us over the last decade. Yeah. In YouTube chat, Wholesome Nave, you say you gotta go against Israel as an idea because ethnostates are inherently fascist. I don't like ethnostates. I don't like religion. Just how? Practically, really, like how? That's the kind of thing. How do you just want to like nuke a country off the face of the earth? Probably not a good idea. Palestinians also live there. Just a lot of normal people live there. It's just a matter of how you do that without like the whole Middle East is kind of a clusterfuck. How? I don't know. Just consequentially, like you're playing with a lot of live ammo there. And there's I don't know. There's just a gap between like the philosophy and the implementation of anything. And I'm not sure how you're going to thread that without like a harm of a lot of innocent people. Just something to consider. Winner will be broke. The DNC needs to be ready for that. The winning primary campaign is often broke by the time they've won. In late 2019 and early 2020, Joe Biden was nearly out of money before South Carolina. That's the nature of contested primaries. You spend everything you have to survive. In May 2020, the entire Biden digital team still consisted of only 12 people who would go on working straight through until June when we had our first round of hires. The campaign held off on hiring, rightfully I think, because we didn't know what effect COVID would have on donations. The team was also burnt the fuck out. There's a linear relationship between the number of people you have and the volume of stuff you produce. AI may change this, more on that below, but it was true then and will be true for the foreseeable future. After the primary, the weary, winded Biden team was able not only to catch its breath, but to expand rapidly thanks to the DNC's turnkey operation. The Biden 20 digital operation would have toppled over without the DNC's help. Jesus Christ. The implication for 28 is clear. Battleground infrastructure, greater relationships, state-level digital organizing capacity, content pipelines needs to be built before the campaign needs it. This is precisely why I am so nervous with the DNC's current precarious financial position. A nominee who comes out of a bruising primary and has to build everything from scratch in June is going to lose months they don't have. It is the DNC's most critical function. That is work that needs to begin now. And if you'll notice, the Republicans right now have the media infrastructure. They have the bot network. They have the paid bounty board for all of their fascist sympathizing or fascist careless creators. Like, they all are spamming out the same paid talking points day by day on Twitter, right? There's something important there. And they could bot that shit too. They have so much money and infrastructure ready to go because their whole party is now built around a very old and dying of medical illness man, right? They are ready because they know that's just not going to last forever. Meanwhile, Democrats have not started on an alternative. There is one good thing in opposition to all of that massive infrastructure, which is there's a Twitter account called @FactPostNews. That is the only thing that's like a rapid response putting out clips and headlines that are like effective against right-wing narratives. It's the only thing they have going for them. It's good. It's not enough. Yes, they have a whole social media app as well. Yes. If Twitter is ever not racist enough for them, they have a MAGA safe space alternative Twitter. We need to address our core problems before the campaign starts. The above point about campaigns being last mile marker on a preset terrain, the funding space is way too torqued on winning the election, not enough on winning the culture. Yes, winning the culture. We talked earlier. Like, it starts with like movies and stuff. Yes. Movies, shows, like social media. We gotta be cool. The right has invested in campus organizing, media, and pressure campaigns to scare people away from liberal values. That's the stuff that changes the shape of the electoral terrain over the long term. Please support National Ground Game and Digital Ground Game. It's our only goddamn chance in hell of taking this back because there is no top-down organizing that's going to do it. And frankly, both of those orgs are too explicitly politically driven and a little cringe because of it. That's okay, that's the best we have. It's effectively Turning Point USA type stuff. It's too overtly political. But like, we just need more cool voices who are very chill. The best I can think of, someone like Jax Films, who's like just a, makes shitpost meme funny YouTube videos, but like will laugh at like people who are like cringe and reactionary and bigoted. Like, we need more just normal people who like good things, especially like young white men. We need more people who care about good things in a normal way. There's like just any way to win this shit back, because like odds are, it means like we need normies. Historically, was politics always about winning the culture, or is this a new thing? I think it's a newer thing, because as we have increased access to information and communication tools, such as digital, like social media and stuff, it is more consequential and one-to-one. Like in the 1800s, I assume if you lived in like a rural area, most of your politics, if you voted at all, like, be a whole adventure, right? If you lived in like a little ranch somewhere in like, the Wild West, it would be like family and culture, maybe your church, but like mostly even just your family, because you live miles away from anyone. Like, those are the only people you talk to. Now things are so much more culturally consequential and interconnected. We can't ignore it anymore. I think that's to be more aware and more like in touch. This is very intuitive. That's not very like deeply researched position. That's just like my sense is that like we need to be cool, and being cool matters so much more because everyone is so much more visible, and like, these things are an inch away when they used to be miles away. Now it's just a few flicks of your thumb, right? Instead of get in the horse carriage and then it's going to be 3 days out to town and 3 days back. Yes, how to get Christians to realize Jesus would not be a fascist. It's crazy to me. One race I'm watching very closely is the Texas Senate. I'm curious if James Talarico can win. He's running entirely on Christian virtue signals as a Democrat in Texas. I'm deeply curious to see if he's going to win or not. It might not work, which proves we're more far gone than I thought. Otherwise, even though I'm an agnostic atheist, I don't mind having a Democrat wheeled out who's just like a spunky white boy who's like, I love Jesus. I'm a Democrat. Like that. I don't know. I don't know what connects people. I don't know. I'm weird. I'm opinionated. I come from East Coast cities. Like, I'm the problem, right? Okay. Yeah, we need to start now. This is the main thing. The election is going to happen on YouTube. That's interesting. I'm not going to read this as deeply. YouTube is a top streaming platform. More than 80% of the country has used YouTube. It'll be the main digital battleground of the election. It has implications for both paid media and earned media. For instance, which podcasts are worth doing. On the paid side, the obvious move is spending money on YouTube ads, creative content that feels like it belongs on YouTube, big podcast ads and the like, which I'm proud we did a lot of in 2024. These people misunderstand how prominent ad block is among the demographics that are the most online, watch the most content on sites like YouTube. This is a big problem. When all the really loud online and politically interested, political content watching people on social media says Kamala Harris doesn't have any policies, I'm not going to argue about her policies with them, right? Because she does the policies. I can look them up. What that actually tells me is these people have ad block and have insulated themselves to like alternative new media, right? These people are hiding from like any actual interviews with Kamala Harris, any actual ads. That is a problem. That requires a different kind of outreach. That's not actually a point of our policies, if you've noticed. Like, even just completely agnostic, right? This is a systemic meta thing. Like, it means like, we're not getting in front of people. That means like there's, you could have the best policies in the world or the worst policies in the world. That is a communication outreach problem. Simple as. I think that it's ad block, and I think it's more significant than people realize. I really, really, really do. Yeah. Instead of paying for YouTube ads, just be in YouTube videos. Like ridiculously widespread. Just be on everyone's YouTube videos. Be like, hi, I'm here. And get like a Mr. Beast video. Like, don't make it political. Just like find random normie groups. Be fun. Be cool. That's what Obama did. Like, to me, in my head, when I was like young, like middle school, high school, like the Obama era of like and the social media era kind of grew together naturally. Like it was like a pop culture thing. It was like harmonious with that. Like, you'd have fun YouTube channels and it would like, reference Obama. And the same way like Obama could reference social media. Like it was kind of the same. It was like an interconnected culture thing. Be normal and exist in those spaces. The problem is like Democrats have since withdrawn from those spaces completely, which has led those spaces to be distrustful, alien, and have a wildly different interpretation. It's just so out of step. Yeah, you give it up. Yeah. But yeah, no, I've read her website. Great policies. People don't know. It sucks. Okay. Outside groups need to be building out YouTube talent now. That's why I'm going to put videos like this on YouTube when I'm done. Campaigns should prioritize YouTube with respect to their own content too. It's resource intensive and takes time to grow an audience. I've been experimenting with it myself, and let me tell you, it's not easy. Getting 20 minutes on camera for a YouTube essay with a candidate is hard if the candidate isn't naturally talented at the medium. Be less formal then. You can do it. Adam Schiff and Alyssa Slotkin spent serious time on it. Their content accrues views over years. Bernie Sanders is doing the same with long-form videos, but most candidates' YouTube channels are repositories of TV ads or floor speeches. No one is voluntarily watching. True. The work of optimizing thumbnails and producing 7 to 20-minute videos that perform on the platform is hard and slow to pay off. True. But it is absolutely worth experimenting on the platform because, again, that's where people are. Yes, Democrats should be leading the protest. Yeah, there's all this like, why don't people get on the streets and do anything? It's like, well, do what? Where's the leadership? What is the action? What is the pathway? Like, if you have the leadership actually do stuff and then kind of a clear call to action, some people will take that clear call to action. But there's no call to action, and I feel like normal people are getting like kind of victim blamed for it. And it's just like a matter of most people don't have time for strategy. It's why we have representative democracy in the first place. There's so much decision making. It just sucks. But fascism is so cringe. It's like famously like the most cringe thing you can be. And the fact that we're like losing a culture war against fascism is kind of pathetic. Social media is dead. You need an ecosystem, not just content. Social media is basically over. The friend-to-friend conversations have largely moved underground to texts, snaps, and DMs. What's left is a series of endless personalized feeds that filter you into interest-based niches. You're watching content or chatting with your friends. Oh boy, this guy's in charge of their digital, and he's too old to be in charge of their digital, right? He thinks that social media means talking with your friends specifically. We still call it social media, even though we know it is about algorithmic feeds, right? It's about social more in the society sense, not friends. This guy's definitions are wrong. He has a generationally outdated understanding of what this is. That is a huge problem. Also, he's referencing Snapchat, way past his prime. He does not mention here Discord. He is behind. He is streets behind. Meanwhile, political ads are predicated on the idea of a captive audience. But there are no captive audiences anymore. Even if people are forced to play an ad, they're not forced to watch it because they often have a second screen. He does not understand ad block. Be careful. It's way more prominent than you think because YouTube ads specifically, more than any other ads, are rage-baitingly long and involved. Like, really missing some critical factors here. Also, with YouTube Premium and with like Twitch subscriptions, you can skip ads. You're not shown them, which means the most loyal people to these platforms are not seeing any ads. People watching on TV are more incentivized to pay for premium because they can't, can't have ad block on your TV. So they're really fucking up. And the fact that those companies are purposely shitifying to force more people to pay for premium means the ads are getting more insufferable. More people are going to walk away or get ad block or get premium. This is a dangerous losing strategy. It's really, really stupid. Also, just the fact of being an ad in general pisses people off. Puts it at a negative, not a positive. So I think this is a really bad idea. Honestly, what I would do, I would just not do this. I would just focus on organically being in random videos enough that feels authentic. Partner with random channels in like every single niche you can. Just become an omnipresent force, like that people talk about and see. Don't be in ads. Don't be in ads. Spotify is the same. Yeah. A lot of people ad block on Spotify. Yeah. But to me, this is already significant because it is a common talking point that they didn't know what Kamala Harris's policies are. That is so prevalent among like anyone who's terminally online and political, who should be the most inundated with ads. They're not getting any of them, not one. This is a failed, like a collapsed mine of a communication channel. Huge mistake here. The implications are clear. You need a lot of content in a lot of places with a lot of different angles that come from a lot of different people. You can't just command and control at the scale of a presidential campaign. Campaigns should be thinking about how to empower staff to create content that people want to consume. But even if you have attractive content, you need an ecosystem to keep people engaged, and branded fan accounts, living accounts, and teams of clippers located in states. Arby's built out a content series with guys doing stunts at Arby's. Bissell built a single-purpose TikTok that just shows their tools for cleaning cars. Campaigns should take note, need to get creative. I kind of agree with this in theory. I have not seen Arby's social media once. I'm very online. I don't know what Bissell is. This guy is wrong and out of touch, right? That's the thing. We're looking at all these articles. They're useful. They're perspectives. They're limited perspectives. We're going to synthesize it ourselves. As more online people, like obviously watching political stuff online, we get the vibes more, and this is all useful feedback. Which is bad. So yeah. Good to know. Also having like unbranded fan account, I don't know. That's weird. If it's like unbranded accounts, like it feels kind of astroturfy, distrust, bad. People are gonna run away from you when they hear this, right? That's important too. Yeah, this paragraph I really don't like. Don't have paid ads. Have more organic stuff. I really give clipping accounts. Just have a bunch of clips go out. That's useful. Or have what Mom Donnie had, right? And this is the problem with like the ultimate thing that Democrats have failed at is at the end of the day, you do just need to persuade people. Mom Donnie got this right. It's a voluntary video in your feed, just like any other video. It's, effectively an ad, but not marketed as an ad. People would want to watch it, watch it through because they wanted to watch it through. Was able to have a strong enough hook and like, here's the thing that's important or I care about and you should too. And then also here's what I'm going to talk about for a bit. And then here's why I need your vote or your donations or your help. Please share this with people. And then people did of their own volition, willingly. You need to create content people actually want to see and want to watch and want to share. You can't just have like traditional paid ads. It's not a good spend. TV ads probably are because of just how TV channels work still, and some people are just going to see TVs, especially different demographics. But like, please don't blow money on YouTube ads. Please don't blow money on YouTube ads. AI will reshape how campaigns operate. Smart users of AI right now can already gain huge advantages in media planning, research, contract review, and content production. No. What shouldn't be automated, campaigns have already solved the disproportionate scale problem by exploiting cheap labor. AI changed that equation. This is going to be a values question for Democratic campaigns, and I don't think there are easy answers. There are easy answers. Please don't do this. If they're gonna use AI to like scrape the research of what people care about and then make ads yourself with real people. Please don't do AI. If you are, at least do a fucking like head empty bot farm. Don't use generative AI. It's so bad for the writing, for the visual. It's a trust destroyer. It's environmentally bad. Any value voters on your side are leaving. It's just not good content. Please don't do this. Oh God. No, it's not a good investment. It's they think, oh, doing the same thing more efficiently with AI. No, it's not. It has ethical alienating downsides that are going to make people disgusted by your account and block your account and tell people not to look at your account. That organic word of mouth, instead of being a positive, is a negative. It's creating worse output. Like, you just don't do this. Don't do this. It's not a more efficient way of achieving the same goal. It's blowing some money instead of no money to cause a negative effect. Just don't. Please, please don't. Um, oh God. Just be the anti AI party. Just be the anti AI party. Jump on that now. Politicize it to hell. When data centers are a local issue, as well as a national talking about online issue, and people are overwhelmingly against data centers. Like, that's a winning issue. It's like a 2/3, 1/3 kind of thing. Oh God. AI will reshape social media behavior. We paint two scenarios. In one, people are fine with AI generated slop despite their protests. Platforms shrug and feeds become a slop war. They already are. And the other, which I think is more likely, people hit a threshold where the internet shitifies to the point of being unusable, and they retreat into private spaces with trusted voices. Discord, yes. If that happens, parasocial relationships with creators will hit warp speed. People will seek out creators, influencers, and voices they really want to hear from by going to them directly. And their real conversations move further underground into group chats, WhatsApp groups, Instagram DMs, Snapchat, Discord servers. I mean, you can't really fight fire with fire. You can fight fire by being like, we're pro water, right? And just take the other half of that argument. Oh God. The problem is, like, they don't understand the media landscape of what these influencers are. There's a big problem where Democrats keep going on to talk with Hassan Piker, and they just get the most bad faith thing where even like literally DSA backed socialists, there's no level of being like anti-Israel that's sufficiently satisfying. And they just lose support. Like, it's about, like, there's the one poor lady. She's the DSA, like, she's a socialist candidate. She's literally backed resolutions like in favor of Palestine and against Israel. They also want to make a mayor job. It's like a mayor. Like, there's no, you can't have conversations with these people. Like, communities around creators are so parasocial and sycophantic that no matter what your position is, like, they're so absolutist and purist around specifically their creator, because any two people are different. If you invest in them over time, it's going to be finding more and more and more and more details until you and the other person, even if you're on the same side of everything, are just a little out of alignment, and then you reject it. It's not perfect. That's just how that goes. That's just how that goes. And it's how it's going to go. Oh God. Please, no. Okay. Yeah, so please don't go, or if you do, like, I don't know, find friendly candidates, or frankly, if you want to go on an influencer's thing, just call them out, make it an antagonistic interview, but like own that, see what happens. No one's tried that yet. I think that would be really fascinating. If just like some like moderate lib went on like Hassan Piker and then like purposely took an anti-Hassan Piker stance, which would like get his audience to hate them, but they're gonna hate them regardless, and just see if there's any gains from that. It still might not. They'd still be in danger, but I want to see one person take that for the team and just see what happens out of curiosity. Like, just in that in general, right? Yes, and this is one perspective. This article is from was submitted to the Bulwark by someone. This was someone who was in charge of all the digital stuff in the Biden 2024 and Harris 2024 campaigns. So it's more like an op-ed they submitted to the Bulwark. The Bulwark is interesting covering it, but like that does show one perspective. Yes. Um. No, I stand by that. There's no amount of being anti-Israel that's enough. Like, the purity testing left is, the game is a matter of moral condescension and purity. Like, it's a consumer culture thing. It's about like having labels. Because like there is a set, if you like practically want to stop Israeli aggression and apartheid in Gaza and the needless death of Palestinians, as I do, like there are practical ways to do that, which is not in alignment with what these groups expect. It's a game, right? They'll take a pet issue and just talk about it and spin it and spin it and spin it. It's a matter of like moral sorting. It's like pure. I mean, it's the same way that the evangelical right works. Eventually, they just divide into different churches. This is how all of rural America is, by the way. Like they'll talk about faith a lot and then just try to test each other out of it. Like, churches are really, really toxic. It also means a parasocial relationship with the candidate and supporters becomes doubly important. Even more than the videos, I thought the scavenger hunts and soccer tournaments were the most impressive part of Zohran Mamdani's mayoral campaign in New York City. He drove a deep personal connection between the candidate and his backers. IRL is going to matter more than ever. Community of the campaign will matter just as much as the campaign's content. I disagree with this, but I don't have the stats. Yeah, don't play parasocial, don't lean into parasociality, don't lean into gotcha games. I don't know how much the scavenger hunts mattered from Donnie. Maybe it helped increase engagement for some people, but it's I feel like there's a limited reach. It's not efficient. Yeah, different churches, yeah. No, yeah, like in the same way that on the right they'll be like, oh, I'm like a Methodist or like I'm a Baptist or whatever. You know, there's like a billion different types of churches, denominations. It's really funny in like a small town. These two churches with like really long and elaborate names, like the Church of Jesus Christ of, you know, whatever. And it's like clear, like there's, you know, these branched out over time. On the left is the same thing. We have like, oh, like I'm a Marxist-Leninist versus I'm a Stalinist versus I'm a anarcho-syndicalist versus I'm an anarcho-communist. Yeah. It's just not very practical. It's about ideological purity. And label as an identity term, it defines you. It's a very personal thing. It's very social. It's not about action. I prefer like externalized, existential uses of labels. That's why like I don't really identify as any particular kind of leftist, progressive, liberal, whatever, anything like that. Like I Democrat is a useful label because it's more like a actual structure that can facilitate action. I vote in furtherance of women's rights. You know, like and I can do that for any reason or any ideology. Like you don't know what's in my head, but like, you know, I feel like it's more useful information, and that's just how I've avoided a lot of infighting discussions personally. There's a lot of anxiety about how LMs are surfacing information about candidates. Yeah. I'm getting bored with this. What actually matters is upstream, how you frame narratives in the places LMs source from. Wikipedia, Ballotpedia, Reddit, Reuters, AP, Axios. Ew, okay. That's gross, but am I a Twitter instigator? I guess I'm a Twitter instigator. I understand what Twitter is. I understand that Twitter is I have to see. I mean, did I instigate something on Twitter? Hang on, let me check Twitter real quick. Live reaction, I've made something go viral. I don't have a lot of engagement on Twitter. I'm trying to figure out how Twitter works these days because I've not used it in years. And it's very biased. No, I'm good. I haven't instigated anything on Twitter. But yeah, no. Twitter these days is owned by like radical right, and it's meant to promote those viewpoints. It's full of bots. It's very fake. It's a propaganda machine. So I like throwing a wrench in the spokes of it every now and then. It doesn't get a lot of engagement. I'm trying. I'm not sure if it's possible. I don't know if it's literally all bots because no one reacts to me anymore, and it's sad. I want them to react to me. But yeah, this is a good point though. Okay, I'm less freaked out about deepfakes than I'm about hundreds of thousands of AI agents shaping the ambient texture of online discourse. Not viral misinformation in the old sense, but fabricated relationships, manufactured consensus, parasocial capture by entities that don't exist, and a baseline sense of confusion and despair that corrodes everything else. This is true. The meager defenses we built for 2016 era problems like troll farms simply don't map onto this complex emerging set of effects. This is true. I've seen on TikTok, groypers pay for bots. They will flood you. If you were like, people who come out as like ex-MAGA, neo-Nazis are in their comment sections trying to recruit them. Any leftist, those same bots are there pushing just the anti-Semitism parts. I'm not big enough for the Bulwark. I have no qualifications that they'd be interested in. But I like the Bulwark. I like Sarah Longwell because I also do user research. And I'm also a lesbian. I like Sarah Longwell. I think the boys on the Bulwark are I think they're naive. I think they misunderestimate certain threats. They're too lenient on conservatives, too lenient on leftists. They don't really know much. I can see why they fell for it and like supported Romney and shit in the past, right? Like I think they're a little insufferable. They talk over Sarah a lot. All that said, it's useful and I'm appreciative of that perspective. I think it's important to remember like where average kind of moderate conservative background biased men like white men are at right now, and the kinds of things they assume are serious and in good faith, like any comments about religion or Christianity, like JVL would engage with. You know, like because they think it's real. It's like, okay, I need to know who's still falling for what is useful. Those are the areas still worth reaching out to. But I'm like, I think I'm more media savvy than that. Um, yeah. So like, you know, so there's some difference in there. Um, How did you expect Roe v. Wade to get codified into law more than it was as a judicial interpretation of existing law? Give me the votes. Give me the time period, the members of the House and the Senate, and the votes. I've gotten lunch with Not So Erudite before. Erudite is cool. Yeah, I got lunch with her, and it's like a double date. Like her and her husband, and RGR and I. Like we got lunch together. We were on vacation. We happened to be in the same area. Could have been like the problem is if you want like I want to enshrine abortion rights, go for it. I need more people. I need more people who will vote to enshrine abortion rights in positions of power because there's not enough votes to do it. Give me more people. As we approach November, I'm going to be doing fundraising streams, and I want to specifically, I would flip as many seats blue as I can because even like there are some social issues are like a moderate line, like a centrist, right? It's like you have moderate Democrats are going to be in favor of like progressive stances on social issues on like at least women and Black people. Unfortunately, there is some faltering support for LGBT rights, which I also support. I am LGBT. But yeah. Well, they don't. There's not enough Democrats win to protect women's rights, right? To protect women's health. Like I mean, you know, they tried. That was the theory. That was the pitch. That's what they put in the ads, hoping that would win enough support to then carry the support to then do something about it, and then failed, like flopped. It flopped. It's actually not a good thing to campaign on. It's a better thing to legislate on than to campaign on if you have the votes for it. But it's politically polarizing, even though most people are for it. But I want to do it. We just need more people. We need more votes. The best we've had is like 50 votes, and then, you know, we would need the VP as a tiebreaker. We need everyone there. And then like one of those 50 votes is like John Fetterman or whatever. Or like Joe Manchin, who like would secretly want to support Democrats a lot, but like it would be killed by his constituents if he did. So if we had like 3 more John Fettermans in like mixed areas, they could take turns doing the good thing and then like, you know, save face. I don't know. In this modern environment, Republicans would absolutely win against Carl Sagan because the average American has decided out of their own insecurity that school is bad and being smart is gay. Sorry. I like Carl Sagan. I love intellectualism. Abortion is also best framed as a medical issue, as a medical rights and freedom and privacy issue. Like, pretty much everything is better framed as a medical rights and privacy and freedom issue. The next campaign should not have a digital department. It should have a campaign where every function understands how to operate in a digital environment with specialists embedded throughout and a senior leader whose job is strategy and integration, not running a siloed shop that makes the internet stuff. In a perfect world, my job doesn't exist. My theory is that the campaign should be broken up into 3 verticals by audience called what you want. Elites and high information people who actually follow politics, persuasion targets, voters you are trying to convince to vote for you or to vote at all. I put paid media and creators in this category. Mobilization targets, base voters, organized groups, the long-term ecosystem. This would be organizing, fundraising, and the like. You need to keep warm. This is wrong. This is a weird breakup of these different things. Personally, I don't know. I don't know. It's weird. This is a weird way to break this up. I don't think in the persuasion target, paid creators. It's just all sus. This is a weird way to do this, but this is this person's opinion, and I respect this person's opinion, and I disrespect this person's opinion when it comes to implementation. You need people managing each of these verticals who not only understand their audience in both the online and IRL manifestations, but who also understand how these audiences and the tactics for reaching them overlap and influence each other. If the campaign doesn't treat digital as a thing woven through every part of their lives, then it will just get eaten alive by its offline counterparts. And absent that, the old model holds. Digital needs to band together to amortize its cross-functional leverage. Divided up into departments without an advocate, it gets picked apart. You need like one central message, and then you need someone for each platform. Like you need a TikTok team, you need an Instagram team, which can be like 1 to 3 people, but you need like the same message going everywhere. That creates a consistent definition of self. That's the problem. I'm pretty optimistic about the next crop of digitally minded operatives. Hello, I would like to be this. Someone hire me to do this, please. There are some insanely talented folks from the next generation running integrated paid programs and innovative field programs in Senate and gubernatorial races right now. This is one of the points I tried to make to the autopsy team. There were things we got wrong and things we got right. But the basic issue is we're still treating digital as a thing when it's actually just the way the world works. That's true. The campaigns that figure that out first are going to have a massive advantage. Ones that don't are going to keep having autopsies. If you want a Carl Sagan type to win, you need to invest a lot of time and communication into making people appreciate education more. Science used to be something cool. People just don't appreciate it anymore. Like, I don't know. I support a very 90s and 2000s idea of like tech optimism. You need to take on big tech. You need to spread word of mouth. There's a lot of persuasion to do before anything could just happen or win. There's a whole cultural conversation. It's just really, really sad. But yeah, especially right now where like a lot of big tech billionaires have intertwined their brands with ideas of science and technology and the future, and then have painted a very dark and evil and twisted version of that. I mean, forces for good, but yeah. Whew, so that's the Bulwark's article. The Bulwark published article submitted by Rob Flaherty, who was in charge of all the digital stuff on the Biden 2024 and Harris 2024 campaign, like that year, including that switch. Those are his thoughts on what worked and what didn't. It's interesting. I still think the way that he talks about and thinks about digital media is still out of touch. But I think some things, like we need a clear, consistent brand and message, are really, really, really useful. I think there's a big problem with everything being out of step with itself and each other. And I think he correctly identified that paid media image backfires. Yeah. So we can get there. It's a hard fight, but we're gonna do it. And I'm gonna stream tomorrow. We're gonna go over another source, and then we're gonna go to another source the next day. And we're gonna start pulling this together, and then I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna write one big Google Doc. That's our like master strategy guide of the lessons we learned. And I wish that school is cool. I wish that learning is cool, and good things are cool. And I want to build a brand of like good things that are cool, that are really uncontroversial, and everyone should like. Yeah. So thanks for watching. I am gonna get food and watch the boys finale. Yeah, I'm not gonna into a wholesome name, but thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.